The hero's name is Cleo, and he's a mercenary. Mercenaries are those who earn their bread by becoming soldiers for hire. They will accept any job as long as they promise money for it. And that's how he came to the royal capital, to accept a contract for the destruction of some bandits who were causing riots in the vicinity. The bald man said that after the previous battle, they were sure that there was practically nothing left of this criminal organization. But under the leadership of their leader, the unfinished ones continued to stubbornly fight back. The mercenary Cleo was listening. In short, the surviving bandits turned out to be surprisingly strong, and since they did not want to continue losing their own soldiers, they decided to turn to mercenaries instead. The man didn't care how they did it. Let them use tactics that they liked. Exceptionally famous mercenaries have gathered here. The request must have come from the kingdom itself. Although they were only tasked with the extermination of bandits, they received such a reward for killing the leader that they can live carefree for a couple more years. It's a sin for any mercenary to refuse such a glorious offer. He had never had such competition before. However, he has already killed bandits more than once and more than twice and has long developed his winning tactics. The bald man said that everyone can disperse. To be honest, the hero does not intend to lose. The one who will defeat the bandit leader will be him. A little later, there were shouts for him to stop. Did he really think they would let him escape? The hero ran forward from a bunch of bandits, repeating in his mind many times that he was arrogant. He was too arrogant. He was going to defeat the leader, but it's just impossible. His subordinate was difficult for the hero in battle, and he's already at the limit. These guys are just terribly strong. They're all strong men. There's an army of them out there. He wondered what kind of place they were in, a bunch of unfinished ones, as that fool said. But still, they are all weaklings, not opponents compared to the most dangerous of them, the bandit leader. He single-handedly dispatched almost all the mercenaries who accepted the contract. He's too strong. His power is on a completely different level. He is not a man, but a monster in human form. This is not a joke anymore. With an enemy like him, even a tenfold reward would be too small. But there's no point in whining anymore, and we need to get out of here. The hero has a dream, and he will never die here in such a place. He could barely breathe, promising himself that he would definitely survive. At that moment, a man with a blade jumped out from the side. The guy did not have time to react and was stabbed in the chest. He thought they were joking. He was thinking who this man was and why he did it. The guy was thinking a lot about himself, that this can't be happening. Was she in league with the bandits? She must have overtaken him. Is he really going to die in such a place? The girl pulled back her hood, looking at him. After a while, the guy woke up and started screaming. He touched himself, wondering if he was alive. The hero did not understand if it was serious and how it happened, because he was hit in the chest. The girl in front of him corrected that she had not been hit, and that the dagger was a fake. She exhaled, saying that she was alarmed and decided that he died of fright. The guy was screaming that he thought he was going to die. What did he do to her to make her do this to him? The guy noticed that this girl was not human. He did not expect to see such a thing in these parts. There was a lot of discrimination here, and he was ready to swear that the Inhumans would stay away from here. It doesn't look like she was in league with the bandits, but... The girl interrupted his thoughts, telling him to be glad that it was a toy knife. She noticed that he was letting his guard down too much. With his reflexes, he need to be always on the lookout. The guy, getting angry, shouted at her, insulting her, and saying that she didn't show off too much. She attacked him herself. The girl gave her name as Kohaku. The girl introduced herself as Kohaku, not as the guy called her. The guy thought about how infuriating this girl was to him. He shouted that he hadn't asked for her name. She replied that she hoped they would get along. The guy started when he heard the scream. He was scared and said that those damn bandits were back, so they're still chasing him. He called out to the girl and asked if she had heard those screams. There are dangerous bandits prowling nearby. He does not know what is on her mind, but advises her to run as soon as possible. He asked if she understood him and began to run away, saying that he had warned her before the upcoming meetings. The girl stopped him by his clothes, telling him to stand. He got angry, starting to threaten that he would hit. Kohaku asked if he wanted her to save him. He heard right. She said she would protect him from these dangerous bandits. Despite her appearance, she is quite strong. Kohaku doesn't know how strong these bandits are, but she asks for just a few minutes, and that's it. At this time, the guy was already running away without listening to her. She caught up with him, asking why he was ignoring her. The guy shouted that he didn't have time to play along with her jokes. Kohaku replied that it was not a joke. He was yelling at her to shut up and leave him. Later at night, The guy was breathing heavily after running, saying that he understood everything, so let him give him a little breath. He realized that she was stubborn, even more stubborn than bandits. Anyway, they had been running for so long, and she didn't care at all. The metabolism of non-humans is a terrible joke. Well, what difference does it make now that he wants to drink and eat? After all, he left his things to escape. The girl handed him the water. She asked if he was thirsty. She told him not to worry. She didn't poison the water. If she wanted to kill him, she would have done it right away. He began to drink greedily while she watched. She held out the food, saying that she had some bread left here. She didn't have time to finish telling him not to worry, because she hadn't poisoned him as the guy grabbed him and started eating. The girl watched him in silence. The guy noticed this and called out to her. She shuddered as she turned around. He asked why she was helping him and what she wanted to achieve with it. He immediately said that even if he remained in her debt, he was not going to repay it in any way. The girl asked if she needed a reason to help someone. The hero replied that he still needed it. In any case, he would not have moved without a reward. He was orphaned because of the war and almost lived on sewage alone. In his lifetime, he became convinced that those people who are not close to you and help you for free are more dangerous than others. He doesn't trust people so easily. The girl understands that it was not easy for him, but he should not worry. She will not do anything wrong with him. The guy screamed, asking if she had forgotten how she attacked him on the spot. She repeated that it was, so that he would be more attentive. He shouted at her to shut up and stop talking nonsense. Thanks for the bread and water, of course, but to be honest, she's pretty suspicious. If she's going to keep following him, then let her honestly say what she's up to. If he doesn't tell her, he'll drive her away, even by force. The girl replied that she wanted him to survive. The hero was surprised to say that he did not understand. Why is she even talking to him like he's going to die? She replied that it was because he was really going to die. The guy screamed that he would not die. The girl looked at him seriously, claiming that this was not the case and he would die. It's going to happen soon, in the near future. She said that she could predict the future and she foresaw his death. He's going to die because it's his destiny. The guy was thinking that he had messed with some kind of abnormal and even terribly dangerous person. The girl started throwing objects at him, and the guy screamed defensively, asking what she was doing. She replied that it was written on his face that he considered her terribly dangerous, and also that she is a hopeless madcap who talks all sorts of nonsense about fate and predictions of the future. The guy screamed that he hadn't developed the idea so deeply, and anyway, what kind of expressive face is this? The girl resentfully said that she was honest with him since he asked. The guy apologized. So he still doesn't understand why she wants him to survive. The girl replied that she would say nothing more, and the guy mentally called her names. The hero sighed and replied that he knew how. At least she's not going to do anything with him yet, is she? She confirmed it. Kohaku will just protect him. Cleo replied that it was fine if he wasn't going to harm him, then let him do what he wanted. She may be weird, but she's not dangerous. Anyway, it's already close to the capital, and there he will say goodbye to her. He sneezed, and she asked if he was okay. The bandits wouldn't have chased them that far anyway, so it's not worth waiting any longer. The guy turned to the side and saw the bear. He got scared and thought about where the bear came from. They don't live here. He's going to hibernate or something and wants to eat in front of her. It doesn't matter now. We need to run and hurry. Kohaku came forward and he asked what she was doing. She replied that she had already told him that she would protect him. It's okay, it's going to be over soon, and let him stay behind her. The bear rushed towards them, and the guy, calling the girl names, threw a stone at him. Kohaku didn't see anything, and the hero grabbed her hand and ran. She asked what he was doing. He called me names again and said that it was the bear Pharaohs. They always go in packs. They've only seen one, but he's got a bunch of friends coming up anyway. If they get together, they're finished. The girl said that it was okay, she would defeat them. The guy denied, saying that it was impossible because they were bears. He said not to talk nonsense and run. She remembered that he had told her to do whatever he wanted, and he shouted at her to shut her mouth. He doesn't know what happened in her life, but she should appreciate her more. The guy stumbled and fell, and she asked if he was okay. She touched his forehead, surprised by his heat. He's feverish. The guy asked me not to touch him. She noticed that he was completely exhausted and needed to rest a little. He told me to shut up again because he was just a little tired from running all day. Let him say what he wants, but that's how he spent all his strength. He asked me to shut up again. He said about the house, he bought himself a house, and he immediately warns her that it cannot be compared with what the nobility would buy for themselves. A man like him could only afford this house by risking his life. The house is far from the capital, and it is quite old and dilapidated, but there is a fairly large garden. If he saves up some more money, he will buy himself cattle and grow his crops. He is thinking about a self-sufficient life. Exactly. He will live a peaceful and stable life. That's his dream. That's why there's no way he's going to die in a place like this. The girl thought about home, a place where it was safe. She caught up with the guy, saying that his house sounds good. She said she was going to live with him, and he screamed, asking why. She explained that it would be easier to protect him that way, and she thought it would be much safer than wandering around. She asked if he had any rooms available, but he replied that he did not. He asked when she would leave him alone. He would say goodbye to her as soon as they reached the royal capital. Kohaku is very sorry, because he won't make it. He told me to shut up again, because it would come to that, but I stuck with him. When he saw what was ahead, he was delighted, saying that while she was talking nonsense, one of the fortresses of the kingdom was visible ahead. They are saved, and now there is no need to run even to the capital. The girl asked him to wait a second, but he didn't listen, shouting that he would be fine. He had already been through so much, and he was alive. He saw the corpses of the royal soldiers and asked what had happened here. The girl clarified that it did not seem strange to him that the gate was open at night. He said it couldn't be. Turning to the side, he saw the leader of the bandits. They were surrounded from all sides. He said it couldn't be. You want to say that some bandits have captured such a huge fortress. What is it? Something is not clean here, and why this nightmare will not end in any way. He thought of Kohaku, but he began to deny it. Everything that happened was his fault. This is not fate. He doesn't believe in fate. We need to come up with the best solution. He is sure that there is some way to survive, and he needs to think. The bandits saw a girl with him, but were unhappy that she was not human. Although, what's the difference between a human or a non-human? Only they were told not to cripple her, otherwise they won't be able to use her in the future. Cleo said he would buy her time and let her run away. They were both surprised, and the guy thought what he had just done. Behind them, the bandits have already decided who gets the girl. The guy started screaming, thinking to himself that he would stop doing this. What he's doing, he needs a way to escape, to look for where to run. But instead, he shouted like a bandit, insulting and promising to finish them off. The men got angry, promising him what he would get. The guy was screaming again and thought that was enough, but it was useless because my head had completely stopped working. Cleo mentally repeated that he was going to die now. Damn his dream, his house, his usual life. But he doesn't want to give up. A stone flew into one of the bandits, and the man flew away. The hero, like the others, stood there not understanding anything. Many more stones flew behind him, hitting the bandits. In just seconds, all the enemies were defeated. The shocked guy did not understand that there was some kind of magic now. Although, no, he had already seen magic a couple of times, but never such an incredible one. He wondered who could do such a thing, and turned around realizing that it could only be her. Kohaku was casting spells behind her. The guy wondered who she was. The girl called out to him. She looked displeased while asking if he was an idiot, wasn't he? This decision of his was not too smart. He would have died for sure. And he himself said that he was not going to help anyone without a reward. He shouted that it was not so, and she did not understand. He had a clouding of his mind. But still, the girl thanked him. He was trying to protect her. The guy insulted her and said that wasn't the point. He stopped thinking. It doesn't mean that he was trying to help her. But thanks to this, the girl finally decided. The guy asked again about her decision. Someone released magic, and the bandits were set on fire. They were shouting loudly. The guy was surprised at what was going on. Kohaku immediately realized that the bandit leader had done it. The man surrounded by fire said she was strong. He feels a powerful force in her. He was waiting for the day when he could fight a powerful creature like her. The hero was shaking when he saw the leader. To think that he would do such a thing. Kohaku told Cleo that it was dangerous here, so he needed to move away. She will quickly put an end to everything. The guy stuttered and asked her to stop. Now he knows she's strong, but they can't handle an opponent like him. They have to escape from here. The girl told him not to worry. She knew one person, compared to whom his flame is like a refreshing fan. She told him to look carefully at the era that was coming soon. The guy repeated her words without understanding them. The leader took up his sword. He struck at the girl, but she easily beat them off. Everything exploded from their duel, so the hero ran away in a panic, hiding in a shelter. He didn't understand what it was. The surviving bandits also ran away screaming. The shocked hero repeated that it was all a dream and he was imagining it. It's impossible. How could a one-on-one duel escalate into a battle of such proportions? They continued to attack each other. The hero thought it was a curse. He doesn't understand anything anymore. Where did they get such strength from, and how did he end up in the middle of such an incredible battle? He doesn't understand anything. What he is sure of is that if this inhuman girl loses, he is finished. Until the last moment, he thought she was a hopeless dreamer, but now he can only rely on her. Let her think about him whatever she wants. He wanted her to win and defeat the bandit leader at all costs. At one point in the battle, the leader was behind Kohaku. Cleo screamed at her to turn around. The girl was able to repel the attack and injure the man. Everyone was shocked. The guy looked at her in disbelief, saying that she had succeeded, but the leader did not give up. He struck again unexpectedly, but the girl parried him again. The man said it was strange. He has managed to unleash more power than usual, and still despite this, he still cannot defeat her. Saying that it was great, the man collapsed to the ground. The girl exhaled and turned around. Behind her, everyone was looking at her in shock. Cleo said in disbelief that she had won. The bandits whispered that they had lost, that it could not be that he, who was capable of crushing the country, had lost alone. The girl noticed that she was also wounded in the arm, from where blood was dripping. She saw the bandit's sword. The bandits shouted that this was no longer a joke. They followed the leader only because he promised them a good life. They had never heard of such monsters before. The guy watched them run away and said that even though they were his enemies, he sympathized with them. It's too much for ordinary people like them. It was too serious. He still can't believe it. Even siege weapons cannot cause such destruction. The bandits ran away screaming while he thought that he really had survived. She really saved him. He thinks he should at least treat her, but he won't let her live in his house. The girl turned in his direction. At that moment, arrows pierced his chest. Cleo fell to the ground as the arrows continued to fly. The bandits recognized the flag. It was reinforcements and very bad timing. These are the elite troops from the kingdom. The chief ordered his troops to kill them. The damn bandits didn't know what they were getting into. Let them show them what happens when they get really angry. While the battle under the moon continued, Cleo lay on the ground and thought that it was a curse because he didn't even have the strength left. In the background, the soldiers were ordered not to let any of the bandits escape and kill. He's really finished. Until then, he had somehow been able to get out of problems, but he could not do it. He doesn't want to believe it, but the inhuman girl was right. Fate really exists. If you think about it like that, misfortunes have been falling on him one after another lately. It was probably a sign that death was coming. He recalled the past, thinking that he couldn't do it anymore. His consciousness was slipping away. He doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to die yet. He doesn't want to die. The girl looked at him, saying that even though the threat had disappeared, she did not expect him to die like this. That's why she told him that he was letting his guard down too much. She's joking. To be honest, she already knew that this could not be avoided. No matter how careful he was, even if she had blocked him from the arrows, he would have just died because of something else. That's what fate is. She tried to defy her, but it was useless. No matter how much she predicted the future, she couldn't change the fate of even a single person. But still, she was right to follow him. They didn't spend much time together, but it was enough to roughly understand what kind of person he was. The battle continued. The soldiers felt the earthquake again. They shouted to everyone to be careful because the tremors are quite powerful. The soldiers did not understand what was happening and shouted at each other to retreat. Kohaku told the guy that he was a ray of hope that she had finally found. A faint ray of hope. Surely it's all in vain. She probably won't change anything. The girl's magic began to envelop the guy's body. But still, she thought she should entrust everything to this ray of hope. Her magic illuminated everything. His destined death cannot be changed. In that case, she will resurrect him after this death. She gives him her life. A flash lit up everything around and the soldiers and bandits watched. The girl repeated the name Cleo Valindio and asked to change the future that she predicted. In fact, he didn't expect much. A boy on the side was calling for Cleo, asking why he was stuck. If they don't hurry up, they'll be yelled at again. The second guy complained that he was already hungry. Cleo said nothing in displeasure, looking ahead. One of the children, looking at the sky, where many stars were visible, shouted in surprise that she had flown by. The second, noticing this, also shouted that it was true. A bright streak was visible in the night sky, where many stars shone. One of the children screamed that it was a shooting star. The second one noticed that another one had flown by. Cleo shouted his wish that he wanted to eat meat to the brim. Next, he wished to eat, and bread to the brim. One of the children shouted admiringly at Cleo to take a look. The child with the scar on his eye opened one eye and looked ahead. The guy looked at the night sky in shock and shuddered. He cried out in surprise when he saw that the night surface was covered with many shooting stars that looked like rain. The kids were screaming about how cool it was. The second child asked if it was called a meteor shower. Cleo looked in their direction and called them stupid, said that enough talking and you need to make wishes. Cleo, clasping his hands in a gesture of prayer, tightly closed his eyes and began to ask the shooting stars for meat, bread, and gold. And I repeated it several times. He just wanted to live a normal life. Therefore, more than once, and more than twice, I asked the shooting stars for food and gold. The grown-up Cleo opened his eyes, sleepily looking up. His face was tired enough. After sitting down, the guy yawned and stretched after waking up, stretching his body. He feels like he's been asleep for ages. He looked ahead and was surprised. His face was emotionless despite his surprise. Cleo asked where he was. His bed was in the middle of an altar-like podium. It was a ruined room in the walls of which there were statues destroyed by time or battles. The columns in the room were destroyed to the ground. He looked at the statues, which were also not in the best condition. Some of them still had stone heads and had only small chips and fractures. Others were left without them at all, being destroyed. Vines have grown over the walls. He looked away in confusion, saying that he did not remember being brought to such a place. He was surprised to ask himself if he had had a drink yesterday. The guy looked at his hand, in which he was clutching a piece of stone, and thought about what was happening. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock. Stop. Now he remembered. He was hunting some bandits. More precisely, from his memories, he ran as fast as he could in a panic from the armed huge men who were catching up with him behind. The guy widened his eyes in panic and started screaming. It was as if for some reason he was terribly unlucky that day, and in the end, arrows pierced his chest, and he died. The guy immediately lowered his head down in a panic. Cleo began to feel his chest with his hands, running them over the shirt on his body. He said, confused, that, well, or he didn't die. He's alive. He was sitting in the lotus position, continuing to examine himself. In his memories, he thought of a young girl who looked like a human, but was different in that she had ears like an animal. He looked ahead in surprise and absently mentioned that non-human girl. He asked if she had saved him. After that, he answered himself that no, it was definitely her. By the way, about her, she is not visible at all, and where she could have gone. In front of him there was only a door that led out of the destroyed room. He was alone. He remembered from the past how the girl had magically wrapped him in some kind of bubble and said that she would give him her life. Clutching his head and closing his eyes, he said that it seemed that before he lost consciousness, she said something like this. He abruptly opened his eyes, looking ahead, scared and shocked at the same time. He wondered if she really was. Before he could finish, assuming the worst, the same girl appeared in front of him from a large crevice that was in the wall of the room. The girl, noticing him, said that it looked like he had woken up. The guy looked at her in surprise and took his hand away from his head. He looked confused when he saw her alive in front of him. The girl calmly exhaled, saying that it was like a stone from the soul. He worried her and didn't want to wake up at all. She looked friendly and untroubled by anything. She quickly ran closer to the hero, asking if he was feeling well, and there were no strange sensations anywhere in his body. The guy, frightened, began to make sounds in surprise and asked her to stop. The girl mumbled questioningly and called out to him, asking if he even remembered who she was. The guy in front of her was shaking all over, looking at her fearfully as if at a ghost. He continued to tremble and said that it was a face, a voice, and hair. It can't be her. He shouted that she was the inhuman girl. Looking at him, she corrected his words that she was not a non-human girl, but a Kohaku. The guy looked at her with wide eyes and asked in surprise, stuttering from shock, what happened to her body. The girl raised her hands, looking at how her clothes had become many times larger in size. She understood what he was talking about and replied that something had happened, and as a result she had shrunk in size. The guy screamed, "From what?" Putting her hand to her face, she looked up thoughtfully and said that she had defeated a couple of other attackers. Then she destroyed the rubble and tried to wake him up with all her might. The guy screamed, and what if this could reduce her in size? She said that whether he sees her is special. When she spends too much mana, this happens to her. The guy exclaimed in surprise that yes, special is an understatement. He was thinking that she was an oddball, as she always was. He's worried for no reason, but she's kind of acting like her usual self. The guy continued to look at her excitedly. Kohaku said that it doesn't matter now, they need to get away from here as soon as possible. The guy looked at her in surprise and repeated her words, asking about the need to run. At that moment, everything began to shake. Stones from the collapsing ceiling began to break off and crumble down from the vibrations that passed through the entire huge room. The guy stuttered in fright and shouted, asking which one. The girl turned in his direction, explaining that a war was raging outside. The guy screamed again, asking about the war. Kohaku thinks it's only going to get worse, so they need to escape before they get involved in it. The light that penetrated from the cracks in the dome of the building illuminated the room from the inside with bright rays. The girl went to the crack in the wall from which she came and reminded that she had to hurry. Getting up, the guy followed her in confusion, agreeing with the girl. When they went outside, they could see mountain ranges and a huge forest. A huge palace towered in the distance, from which black smoke rose into the air in a huge stream. The guy looked forward in shock, seeing that the royal capital was on fire. While he was sleeping, everything went wrong. The guy began to groan and asked the girl that he had not been to these lands before, had he? Kohaku confirmed this and added that they were in the neighboring province of Koglad. The guy asked about the time and asked why she brought him here. Then it became clear to him. Discrimination was rampant where he lived. Maybe she went here because it was hard to stay there. Well, now the war has broken out altogether. It means that she took him with her to such a far place. The guy turned to the girl who was stroking the big monster at that moment. Kohaku turned to him and asked why he was frozen in place and told him to get in faster. The guy ran to the cart. She wondered if this girl had been courting him all this time. The hungry guy ate with a huge appetite. She told him that it was not necessary to talk about everything so that he would know. He replied that for some reason he was so hungry that he would have eaten a horse. The girl turned to look at him and turned away again, confirming something. If he has such an appetite, then he's fine. Embarrassed, the guy fell silent and turned away. He didn't know how to put it. He apologized because it looks like he caused her a lot of inconvenience. He said she saved him. There was no way he would have survived after the arrows pierced his chest. And he is very grateful for many other things. Kohaku smiled. Well, where did such gentleness come from all of a sudden? She was interested in it. He asked me not to say that. He's not so heartless that he doesn't feel indebted to her after everything she's done for him. The girl chuckled, saying, "That's how it is. You're welcome." The guy was clearly embarrassed and looked down. He added after a silence that, well, he was very uncomfortable about it, but she could live in his house. He said this with a strange face. The girl turned in his direction. He asked if she remembered when they were running away from the bear. She offered him to live together when he told her about the house. Then she said she was going to live with him, and he asked why. Cleo said that, to be honest, he is extremely opposed to other people crossing the threshold of his refuge, but he can't offer her anything else, so. Although the house is in the middle of the wilderness and there is nothing interesting nearby, there is no such discrimination as in the capital, and if he still wants to live there, no matter what, he asks for mercy. The girl hesitated, answering that she wanted to tell him a little later, but there was probably nothing left of his house. The guy asked, confused, what she was talking about. The girl looked away, saying that it had been a century, you see. The guy gasped questioningly. She added that he hadn't woken up for 100 years. He gasped questioningly again. The guy was staring intently ahead. He looked at the landscape in front of him, saying what this world means a century later. To be more precise, 108 years and 3 months have already passed. When he first heard about it, he shouted that it was complete nonsense, starting with the fact that he hadn't aged at all. It seems to be because his body was frozen in time due to magic. But why hasn't the girl aged at all? On the contrary, she looked younger. She told me that she was special. She has a very long life expectancy, unlike them, humans. Well, he doesn't care if a century has passed or not. He hasn't changed at all, and anyone who might have been worried about his disappearance has long since died. He was most upset about the house. He won't see the days when he retires now. All his efforts were in vain. He returned to the starting point again. He hung his head and sighed. He didn't even have time to live there for 6 months. The girl found the city. The guy ran to her, surprised, asking if it was true. She confirmed it, but the guy saw that it was the same there. She replied that there was nothing to be done and they would go looking for another way. On top of that, war is raging everywhere in this era. It seems that he really only dreams of peace. They saw the building and were surprised that it was true. They found an old fortress. The guy told Kohaku that she had a sharp eye to see her from this distance. She replied that she was at least 100% sure of her eyesight. The hero said that, but it would be worth being sure of other things. Her combat skills, life expectancy. The girl went ahead saying that they would spend the night here. He stopped her, asking if she was sure. Maybe some looters have settled here or something like that. The girl turned around and told him not to worry. Despite her appearance, she is still strong. She went inside the building, and the guy clarified that, but still, she's weaker now, isn't she? She mumbled and replied that, well, she probably wouldn't be able to show even a fifth of the strength that she had a century ago. The guy repeated her words about the fifth lobe and said that it turned out that she was very weak. She told him not to worry. Even so, she would definitely protect him. She doesn't feel anyone's presence, so she thinks there's no one there. Going forward, she found something. She walked into a place with a bunch of barrels and said it was mead and quite old. The barrel has been around for half a century. At least drink it there. Moonshine, probably. The guy called out to Kohaku, and she turned around with a questioning mumble. He asked with a serious face what he needed to do. The girl did not understand his question. Therefore, the guy clarified that to express his gratitude, he has lost everything, including his house, so he can only follow her instructions. He thinks she's helping him for a reason, and he asked if she had any important purpose. She noticed that he still had a sense of duty, but he just doesn't want to owe her anything, that's all. So he asked me to tell him. He would really do anything for her, so. The girl interrupted him, telling him to survive at all costs. The guy was indignant, saying that he had already heard this. Everything Kohaku wants can be expressed with just this phrase. And Cleo tells her that she wants to hear something more specific. For example, the reason she wants him to survive so badly. The guy got upset, saying it didn't matter anymore. He thinks she would have offered him something grandiose like stop the war or save the world. The girl behind was surprised. He knows that it certainly wouldn't have come to this, but for now, he's had enough. Well, that's fine. For now, he will try his best to stay alive. The girl agreed, saying to take it seriously. A little later. The guy said that still, if you think about it, survival in this war-torn world promises to be quite stressful, doesn't it? If this goes on, it will hardly be possible to hope that there are still peaceful lands somewhere. The girl agreed with him. She entrusted him with a rather difficult task. You will need gold to survive. Since the whole world is fighting among themselves, it's fashionable for mercenaries to go back to him. The girl got angry, asking if he was dumb. The guy, getting angry, asked who she called stupid. She continued to bicker because she had told him to stay alive, so why would he put himself in danger? He was indignant, saying that, well, not very many professions are in demand now. He told her not to worry. No matter how he looked, he had been a professional mercenary for 10 years in a row, did she know? If things get bad, he immediately leaves quickly. He promises her that he will not act rashly. Then the girl clarified, what if she told him that now a bunch of people like that bandit leader are fighting on the battlefield? The guy gasped in shock. He called out to her, asking what she even wanted to say. She asked to be allowed to explain, and asked for a second. She returned holding the object in her hands, and asked if he knew what it was. The correct answer is the weapon used by the bandit leader. The guy was surprised that she had appropriated it for herself. In truth, this is not an ordinary weapon. He was forged a long time ago, and it is said that if the sword and its owner fit each other, he is able to bestow unprecedented strength, which the owner will be able to surpass even 1,000 soldiers. The guy asked her in surprise, so that unusual power of the bandit leader was due to this sword. When she said that a lot of people like the bandit leader are involved in the battles, she meant that there are many similar weapons that have fallen into the hands of the belligerents. One warrior destroyed the castle's impregnable gates with a single blow. The other chopped up the enemies with lightning speed. And a third called for a huge hurricane that scattered a large army in all directions. People call the wars of this era by the names of these special weapons. Wars of unknown swords. The guy repeated the wars of unknown swords in horror. Kohaku said that there are other names in the annals. They are sometimes called holy or magic swords. The guy didn't understand what kind of nonsense it was. What kind of era is this? The girl summed up that, in general, the mortality rate among mercenaries is completely incomparable to what it was a century ago. But he can survive even without money, because the mercenaries. The guy interrupted her, asking her to wait. He reached for the sword in her hands, telling her to give it to him for a second. He looked like a madman at the weapon, saying that eyes for an eye and an unknown sword for an unknown sword. So if he has the same power as them, then the problem is gone, isn't it? The guy looked at the sword enthusiastically, saying that he would earn a fortune with it. The guy screamed, swinging his sword. Nothing happened, and the girl asked that nothing was coming out. The guy replied that it looked like it. The guy shouted in frustration, which means he is not compatible with the sword. He's just a jerk. The girl calmed him down, telling him not to worry. She's not compatible with him either, so he shouldn't be so upset. It seems that the unknown swords are compatible with completely different people, so she is sure that one day an unknown sword will surface that will suit him. The guy turned around and looked at her strangely. She asked him if something was wrong. He asked if she had a card, and she replied that, of course. He apologized and asked for a second. Cleo silently looked at the map and then asked how she thought this old fortress would remain unoccupied. She replied that she probably did. And these glasses with mead don't look like they were brought here recently, so I guess the fortress has been abandoned for a long time. The guy thought about mead. He held the glass in his hand, silently looking ahead. The hero began to walk around the fortress, looking at its rooms. Standing in place, he was silent, and the girl asked, calling out to him, what he was thinking so hard about. He asked her to listen and asked, looking at her, why they should not settle in this fortress. Since there's war everywhere, he thinks they'll be safer here. They'll grow crops and all that. They will be self-sufficient. Kohaku thinks it's a good idea. To be honest, she was thinking the same thing. Had he been thinking about it all this time? He said no. He had another idea. In order to definitely survive in this era, he thinks that he still has to find himself an incredible sword that he can use. Kohaku asked if he would go in search of the sword after all. He is convinced that by doing this, they will make their construction of the fortress meaningless, so they will wait. He suggested opening a tavern. Arrange a tavern for travelers near the highway and wait until the owners of unknown swords come here themselves. The girl repeated about the tavern, and the guy stopped her, saying, wait, he understands everything. She wants to say that this is some kind of absurdity. But as she sees it, they have stumbled upon a whole sea of mead. They have no reason not to cash in on it. Besides, this good-aged mead tastes like heaven in a bottle. If everything is successfully turned around, they will also earn good money. He knows from experience that he is a former mercenary. They're all terribly grateful to the taverns in the backwoods. In fact, their target is warriors from neighboring lands. They will drink them at a price slightly higher than the market price. Now there is a war everywhere, and he is sure that the demand will be serious. He asked her what she thought. So they will be able to search for unknown swords and earn money. In the worst case, if they do not stumble upon unknown swords, then at least they will earn, so the situation is a win-win. The girl understood. The tavern means for travelers. She hadn't thought of that. He asked if she agreed that it was worth a try. Kohaku was silent, thinking, and then said that it didn't sound bad. She only has one question. If an unknown sword compatible with him appears, how does he intend to get it? He replied that he would have time to think about it over time. She replied that it was clear to her, so he was hopeless. But, well, she thinks his optimism is wonderful. He is a little naive, but she likes such character traits. Besides, running an institution sounds like a lot of fun. The guy laughed, saying that now that they had decided on a goal, he was all on edge. Once they got down to business, he would try his best. He shouted that it was time to get to work. They will create the greatest tavern on the entire continent. Kohaku told him not to overwork himself to death. They were working on the land, and Cleo said it was great, and that would be enough for now. The girl agreed because if they plowed even more, they would not be able to cope with such a volume of work. Open a tavern and find unknown swords to achieve both of the goals they set for themselves. First, they had to get a solid foothold under them, so the first thing they did was plow their field. The world is mired in wars. Right now, nothing is more important than a stable food source. This simply cannot be ignored. But the guy was wondering if he would grow anything here. He's a little worried. Koharu said that everything was fine. Although the soil here is very sad, they will somehow cope. On one side, there were tedomino tomatoes with red carrots. In the other, chili beans and borin cabbage. Next to it, there are Corcadian potatoes, and a little further there is corn from Peshawar. Of course, it will take some time until all this grows, and it will be possible to harvest. Tomatoes will take 20 days to ripen, and they can be eaten. The guy was pleased with what a magnificent vegetable garden came out. Kohaku already had vegetable seeds and a minimal set of tools for working in the field. It seems that before he woke up, she was living a self-sufficient life. On top of that, thanks to this, they still had a supply of food by today. Perhaps, if he were alone, he would have serious problems finding food. Seriously, she's just superior to him in everything. Kohaku said that if they had enough space, they should also allocate a plot for a wheat field so that there would be something to make bread from. The guy replied that it was a great idea and they would definitely do it. Anyway, since they are tightly engaged in farming, there should be no problems with food. However, there was another question before them, of paramount importance, which we had to solve. The guy looked surprised, asking if this was really all that was left. He scored so much yesterday. The question is about the water. A lot of water is used for watering, especially with a field like theirs, and tomorrow they'll use up everything that's left. The guy resigned himself. What can you do here? He's going to start typing again tomorrow. It's not like they had nowhere to get water. That's just the way to the nearest water source is tediously long. 4 hours of walking, not counting the way back. 4 hours even if you leave in the morning. When you return, the sun will already be setting. The girl said it was inconvenient. The guy agrees, and besides, it's dangerous in the first place. Kohaku summed up that these are the consequences of the war. This is no longer the group of robbers that they had noticed before. They are bred here like mosquitoes. Well, it's better than if they joined together in a huge clan. Let them kill each other. Maybe one day it will all end there. The guy said it was very likely that they could be dragged into some kind of war, so the distance to the nearest source is a serious matter. Kohaku suggested that, if so, she could move closer to the water source, but the guy said that's not an option. He is quite happy with a place where there is nothing in the area. If they had settled somewhere better, this place would have been instantly chosen by robbers, and they would have been attacked. And this piece of land, where there is a little bit of the most necessary, will survive the wars of this world. And personally, Cleo, it seems that this place suits them best. And the guy likes the fortress. Looks like you're going to have to work hard. They can only tolerate it. The guy offered to go back already. However, he is still worried that there is no water source nearby. The guy was grunting and doing something, and Kohaku came up and asked what he was doing. He was digging a well and looking for underground currents. They don't need much, so he thinks, or maybe they can get water right here. The girl chuckled. She wondered if there were any underground currents at all, but he had no idea. But when he was inspecting the old fortress, he noticed that there were drains everywhere. These are aqueducts. He probably thinks they were built when people lived here so that they could easily get water. And if there are no rivers nearby, then it is very likely that no underground currents were involved. She asked if he thought that this fortress could have been abandoned because these currents had dried up. He replied that it was possible, but they also could not know the opposite for sure. But he still has nothing to do. He wants to try everything he can. He doesn't want to regret later that he didn't do something from the very beginning. It became clear to the girl. Well, then it's really worth doing. She asked if he wanted her to try to punch a hole with magic. She could instantly make a hole a couple dozen meters deep. He said she shouldn't waste her magic on such a thing. Even in the best case, her strength is still slightly reduced. It's better for her to save it until the moment when she needs to protect herself. And anyway, he can't rely on her in every little thing. Let her give him a little work. The guy freaked out, saying it was useless. With these tools, you can't dig anything further. He would go and see if there were any better tools left in the fortress. He told her not to even think about digging a hole. The girl agreed. The guy ended up in an old fortress on the first basement floor. There was nothing to be seen, and he thought maybe there would be something like an ice axe. But the truth is, they still need so much more. We need a bow and arrow for hunting. He could use a rope and a hammer, and there's no furniture here. And he's still wearing the same clothes. When winter comes, you will need to take measures against the cold. If they don't solve all these issues, he was directly reminded of the days when he had not yet entered the orphanage. It was hard then. The guy spat, saying that now is not the time to feel sorry for himself because he needs to look for tools. He turned his attention away. There's a strange wall there. The hero cried out in surprise and called Kohaku, telling her to come to him. They were looking at a huge staircase that was so long and dark that there was no end in sight. The girl was surprised that the cellar goes even deeper. At first, the guy thought it was just a shadow from the rubble of stones, and there was a staircase. He offered to go and see. He was looking forward to it, and she understood him. It would be great if there was a mountain of treasure there. They would have solved a lot of problems in one fell swoop. The girl noticed that such luck does not happen often. He asked if she knew that there was a lucky man in the world who had been resurrected a century after his chest was pierced. The girl said that a terrible monster might be sealed there. The guy asked her to stop, because if she says so, it's not hard to believe. The girl screamed sharply, and the guy was scared. He got angry, saying that she had found time for childish jokes, and she laughingly apologized. She asked that he was relaxed, wasn't he? They don't know what awaits them downstairs, so it's better to prepare in advance. He angrily replied that he knew. The guy was glad that he finally saw the last steps. The stairs went much deeper than they thought. Now he's filled with hope. He was surprised to look ahead. There was a sword in front of them. The girl asked what he was doing here. The guy mentioned that he was weird, but it's in good condition considering it was abandoned here. Is this really it? Looking at each other, they both said at the same time that it could be an unknown sword. If it's really an unknown sword, then they're terribly lucky, aren't they? For some reason, it seems to him that he has found his unknown sword. He was screaming. Puffing, he tried to get it out. It didn't work out for him. He's stuck so deep that he can't get it out at all. Rolling up her sleeves, the girl decided to try it too. She's not very confident in her strength, but she's going to be stronger than Cleo. The guy said to watch so that she didn't pull her hand. Counting to 2, the girl began to pull, and liquid began to flow out from under the sword. Magic began to flow around Kohaku. The guy looked at it in shock, realizing that it was water. He was glad because it was an unknown sword after all. That leader's sword was shooting flames, and this one is letting out water. He asked if she wasn't happy. It's an unknown sword, compatible with it. The girl did not answer very happily, which seemed to be the case. It became clear to the guy. This means that these drains everywhere were indeed aqueducts, and this unknown sword was the source of water. The guy laughed, saying that they had succeeded. Their water issue has been resolved. The water kept rising, and the guy told the girl that he already understood everything, and she could calm down and stop the water. The girl replied that she was not stopping. It seems to flow out by itself. The guy panicked, saying that it was because she was holding him in her hands and she needed to let go of the sword. She replied that she couldn't. He has some incredible power. She feels as if mana is being sucked out of her. Her body doesn't obey her. She asked him to wait because she thinks she can let him go now. He shouted that time was running out and she needed to hold on. He was trying to help disconnect. They fell, and he was glad that he was able to separate them. The water flow increased, and he did not understand how. The girl began to drown and tell him to run away as soon as possible. The flow increased, and he grabbed her in his arms as he ran away. He climbed the stairs with her in his arms and screamed as the water behind them quickly caught up with them. As a result, water gushed out of all the cracks of the container fortress in a large fountain. The two of them were washed out. Lying down, the guy said that they had escaped. He noticed that they were having a new trouble. The girl realized that unknown swords are capable of such things. Cleo asked if she was okay. She replied that she did, but she used up a lot of mana. But she has nowhere to shrink, so he doesn't have to worry. He asked if it was normal at all. Kohaku said that was fine, but now they had easily solved the issue of water. The guy agreed, but if possible, I would like to take with me an unknown sword that creates water. Speaking of which, he remembered. He noticed how the animals began to frolic in the water and asked if she didn't think they had a very good place now. The girl laughed, answering that if the robbers found him, they would definitely attack them. The guy replied that it wasn't funny. By the time the tomatoes in their garden were ripe at the highway, a half-hour cart ride from the old fortress. The girl is glad that they have finally finished. The guy imagines it in a different way, more like a shack than a tavern. Kohaku believes that it's okay, it just came out first level. They will work on it properly and it will be fine. Their tavern was built. So far, only alcohol and water will be sold. And when their relations with the beds get a little better, they will be able to feed them. In these lands, water is priceless, so she thinks that at least for her sake, people will come in. The girl was pleased to say that it was necessary to prepare more mugs with plates and gradually determine the prices. The guy noticed that she really likes it all, as he sees it. She replied that she liked it, but didn't he? He once said without enthusiasm that he liked it, of course. It's just kind of exciting for Cleo to see their plan come to life. To tell the truth, even though he offered to open a tavern himself, he thought that maybe it's not worth opening such an institution at all now. He was tormented by doubts. Let's just say things were even worse, with public order than he thought, and bandits were running everywhere. And for the fact that the old fortress, which has become the best possible home for them now, can be found by robbers, he was very worried. After the incident with Kohaku and the water source, she lost some of her magic power again. If they are attacked by the wielders of unknown swords, they will definitely not be able to fight back. In other words, he was thinking about giving up on the tavern business. The girl was shaking, asking again about quitting. She was asking if he was serious right now. She really wanted this. The guy made her think for herself how risky it all was. He wondered why she was so upset. The girl replied that then they would have nowhere to collect information. Besides, doesn't he want to find his own unknown sword? She assured me that everything would be fine. Whatever happens, she will protect him. The guy thought that who knew that she would like this idea so much. In the end, he agreed, saying to get down to business. That's how, despite his anxiety, they set about creating a tavern, as planned. The guy was looking up saying that, but still despite his anxiety, although it would be more accurate to say as he was afraid. They've been open for a week now, and still haven't seen a single living soul. The girl said that they just chose a place that was too deserted. She saw hoofprints, so apparently people are passing through here after all. Perhaps the timing was wrong. Still, even though they achieved their goal, they were too hasty with their idea. They still have to work in the field and do repairs, but they wasted their time. The girl said that maybe everything is fine. If you only do what you work, you can drive yourself into the grave. She closed her eyes, saying that such moments would not hurt either. Cleo looked at her and replied that it was for sure. That's not bad either. It's been almost a month since N woke up in this era. How quickly time flies. If you think about it, he never asked about anything. He didn't ask where she was from, whether she has relatives or friends. Why did she decide to help him, and what is her goal? Before that, he kept a distance between them because he didn't want to get involved in anything. Maybe it's time to ask. The guy turned to her, asking her to listen to him. But at that moment, the girl turned her attention to the side, saying that someone was heading towards them. The guy saw it, saying it was true. It could be a client, but the girl noted that it could be a bandit. But he doesn't care about anyone anymore, although no such thing is necessary. Anyway, we need to lure him in, and then they will serve him. She can rely on him. To be honest, he once worked part-time at a tavern. He won't miss a client for anything. In front of them was the knight of the kingdom of Gardo, Sophia. The girl insulted them and asked who gave them permission to open their shop. They are located in the territory of the Gardo kingdom. The guy thought that it looked like they were in for bigger problems than robbers now. The guy asked about the shop and said he didn't understand what it was about. The girl told me not to lie to her. Sophia said there was a road sign pointing to the tavern 15 minutes away. The guy was surprised, asking if she was serious. He turned to Kohaku, asking when she had just managed. She explained that she had found a suitable board and made it. Yes, she has provided for everything. Sophia screamed, pointing at them and asking if they were listening to her at all. They're riffraff breaking the law. The guy apologized and said that he was left homeless because of the war and ended up here. He thought that in such a wilderness, this land did not belong to anyone. Kohaku asked if the Gardo kingdom was a small country to the west of here. The guy asked what she was like. The knight said they didn't know. The Gardo kingdom had won the previous war, and their possessions had expanded significantly. Someone screamed, saying that it couldn't be true. In times of war, everything changes so quickly. Sophia said they could turn a blind eye to opening an establishment without permission. However, they must leave this area immediately. Kohaku asked if they were evicting them. Cleo summed it up by saying that, in general, all they needed was to get the permission of the Gardo kingdom. He said they would get this permit and open their tavern without any scruples. They will go to the kingdom tomorrow, and today the knight will have to endure not spending the night in the open air. Sophia replied that she understood, however, she would take the non-human girl with her. The guy, surprised, asked what it was. The knight said that she was guilty of trespassing. In their kingdom there is a ban on entry for inhumans. Therefore, she must go to jail before they receive further orders. The guy got angry, saying that she was an infection. He's not going to be nice to her anymore. He didn't give a damn that they had a war here. The knight asked how he was behaving with her, and whether to throw him into prison too. The guy replied that she could try. He will throw and throw if he can. He called her a walking dung. Sophia got angry, asking if she was a walking dung. He calls her, the knight, manure to her face. The guy changed his mind, saying that no, manure is too flattering for her. At least the manure is good for fertilizer. She is worse than dung, an evil and good-for-nothing knight. The knights shouted, asking how dare he be rude. The girl told them to stand where they were. She will personally deal with this brute. Cleo asked me not to make him laugh. He has 10 years of a mercenary career under his belt. Kohaku called Cleo, but he told her not to talk him out of it. He can't stand people who are stupefied by the authorities and look down on everyone. Sophia seemed to be preparing for him, and he attacked. They started fighting. Cleo teased her that she could only talk. She's practically powerless with her sword. The girl noticed that it seemed that this would not be enough. If that's the case, then he needs more. She hit him again, and the guy jumped back in surprise. There's a streak left on the ground. He did not believe that she also wielded an unknown sword. Kohaku called him names, asking why it couldn't be. This was to be expected. The guy asked her not to call names. Of course, she wields an unknown sword, but she doesn't terrify him like that bandit leader once did. She also doesn't use it so well, and it seems to him that she doesn't have a sword at all. Sophia shouted at him to attack. She screamed for him to receive the power of her unknown sword. The guy dodged and was able to get closer, holding the sword up to her face. Cleo chuckled as the others watched, shocked. Shocked. The soldiers were calling the commander. He knew she was weak at all. No one would so obediently go head-on to such an attack. She hadn't thought about what would happen if he dodged. If so, even the bandits he had fought in the past were stronger than her. He asked what they do when they lose a duel. The loser dies or obeys the winner in everything. It was the way of the mercenaries. What will she choose? Although, however, the hero hopes that she will just run home in fright. She said she hadn't lost yet. The guy noticed that she did not know how to admit defeat. She took the sword, saying that the fight had just begun. The magic became much more powerful, and Cleo and Kohaku were scared. Great power was coming out of the sword. The guy ran away, shouting that she suddenly became an order of magnitude scarier. Kohaku said he was too arrogant. The knight went crazy asking how he was. The knights began to retreat in the same way, fearing that she would touch them as well. With one blow, she demolished their tavern, and Kohaku looked at it with her mouth open in shock. The guy realized that she was dangerous after all. She just blindly hit with this technique. But this is their chance to escape while they can. The girl said she would not forgive. They put so much effort into building it. The knight looked around where they had gone. She noticed them and said that this time he would not get off so easily and would taste her true strength. Kohaku hit her, and she flew off to the side. She told her not to dare to destroy what someone was trying to build. The guy thought it was strange to hear that from her. He thought Sophia was dead, but she was still alive. Kohaku is really incredible, and now he feels stupid that he was afraid of bandits. The girl had told him that she wanted him to survive. The guy remembered those words of hers, but it seemed to him that he could handle Sophia. Kohaku was angry. The guy asked her not to be angry. She promised that she would hit him if he behaved so recklessly, and he promised that he would not do it again. Men praised the booze, saying it was delicious. Cleo boasted that this drink was their pride, although they just found him. Cleo hinted to them that if their country bans their tavern, they won't try it anywhere else, so they need to think about it. If they understand, then let them drink and pay money. Sophia thanked Kohaku for taking care of her wounds. Kohaku said the wounds were light and apologized for losing her temper a little. Although the girl measured her strength, it should still hurt. The knight replied that it was her fault. She asked to be allowed to apologize for this incident. Kohaku said it was her job after all. Besides, they ordered a lot of drinks from them. Sophia hugged her. When Cleo saw them, he asked why they were hugging and joked at her, saying that they did not have such an institution and she needed to find another one. Sophia began to justify herself, saying that he was wrong and it was in a fit of sisterly feelings. She apologized to Kohaku. She told Cleo how many times she needed to be told that her name was Sophia. She is the commander of the 4th Cavalry Unit of the Kingdom of Gard. He told her that he had already understood, let him drink and pay money if he wanted to apologize. He can also pour water. She drank it all in one gulp, saying to underestimate the liver of knights. She would show him the depth of her apologies. She told him to pour more. Night fell. The girl got drunk and started talking about the fact that the country has increased and the laws have become stricter. She complained that because she could use an unknown sword, she was already appointed a squad leader at that age. It's an honor, but everyone looks with prejudice and the responsibility is great. It's just a nightmare. She works day after day and no one will even praise her. She tries so hard, but no one will admit it. The guy realized that she had accumulated a lot of stress. She said that they had been hiking for 7 days in search of the Thunder Swordsman. She even climbed into such a hole without really resting. She wants to go home. Cleo asked who the swordsman was. The girl was surprised that he had not heard about this case. 10 days ago, a wandering swordsman appeared in their country. He cut down more than 100 soldiers in one night. He was named Thunderstorm in honor of the thunderstorm demon from the local legend who had the power to control lightning. Like a demon, this swordsman wears horns and wields lightning bolts, which is why he was nicknamed so. Such swordsmanship and, at the same time, the power of thunderstorms are very unusual for these places. Neither ordinary soldiers nor troops of warriors with unknown swords were able to catch him. Whether he's a spy for their other country or just a maniac, he's terrifyingly strong. Cleo said it looked more like a local horror story than a highwayman. Sophia's task is to find out the truth. They were sent to the area to catch him, but in the end, they could not find a single clue. The girl started shaking, and Cleo thought she was throwing up. The girl started crying, saying that if they come back like that, everyone will mock them. She doesn't want to go home now. Cleo remembered that she had just been whining that she wanted to go home. She asked for more, and the guy told her to stop. In the morning, Sophia apologized. She always starts whining when she gets drunk. She's a bit of a bad drinking buddy. The hero said that a little is an understatement. Kohaku was grateful that they had drunk so much, and there was no need to worry. Cleo replied that it would actually be worth it. Sophia told them that they shouldn't worry about the tavern. She will decide everything. As she left, she said goodbye to them, apologizing once again for the trouble. Kohaku asked me to take care of myself. Cleo shouted after her so that she wouldn't get too crazy and come back. He would listen to her whining again. Sophia bowed to him. The guy was asking if she was going to be okay. Kohaku thought so. They went to the fortress. The guy is terribly tired. Kohaku said that everything was fine. They have earned and they will get a license. But the guy was worried about the story of the swordsman. He is terrified that so many people are being killed off the battlefield in order to get wanted. Kohaku has wasted her strength, and you should not rely on them. It's time to think about protection. They were thinking about protection options like mercenaries or walls and traps. They need to think carefully because you can't spend money indiscriminately. And now they need to go to the field. The girl called out to Cleo, telling him to stand. She looked at the fortress and said that someone was there. He asked if it was serious. Maybe it's a thunder swordsman. She felt that there were several of them and told him to be careful. Behind him was a man in a mask and with a blade. The hero screamed. The earth was cracking with magic. A stone flew at the man, but he fought back. The attacker pulled away from them, jumping back. Cleo asked who he was. He was apologizing to the girl for not noticing him. She replied that he reacted well because she didn't even notice him. Perhaps this is his unknown sword. The guy assumed that the sword was hiding the presence. She told him to be careful. They were surrounded, and probably the others also had unknown swords. Cleo said that there are a lot of them, and if everyone has swords, then everything is bad. The girl was comforting him. The guy noticed that they were from a guild of assassins called Three-Eyed Masks. Kohaku asked if he knew them. He said that they were wearing exactly the same masks 100 years ago. There are many killer guilds, and they are the most monstrous. Becoming their goal is no longer possible to escape. No matter how much you resist, they will appear one after another until they are killed. They are a very creepy organization, and it was considered better not to mess with them. He doesn't understand what they're doing here. A guy appeared behind me. He thought it was the noise, but it was them again. Cleo asked who else it was. He said that if they didn't stop, he would kill everyone. Cleo noticed the horns on his head. Kohaku was watching. The killers went to the guy. He struck all the masked attackers with his lightning bolt. Cleo screamed when he saw the lightning. The lightning swordsman continued to be attacked, but they did not have time to attack him. He quickly and accurately struck everyone who approached him with his lightning bolts from an unknown sword. Cleo squeezed his eyes shut, while Kohaku stared intently ahead. All the assassins were hit and lay on the ground. Cleo was shocked. He remembered what Knight Sophia had said about the Thunder Swordsman and understood. It's definitely him. The assassins quickly ran away without continuing the battle. The swordsman clicked, surprised that they still had the strength. He glanced at the couple to the side. The hero was scared that he was looking at them. The swordsman tensed, realizing that Kohaku was strong. He released the lightning bolts again. Cleo screamed that he was in a fighting stance. Kohaku told him to hide because he would have to fight in earnest. Both were already ready to start fighting. They stared at each other intently. The hero began to tremble, and lifting Kohaku in his arms, he shouted for them to stop. The swordsman was surprised. The girl asked what he was doing, so it was not convenient to fight. He asked her to calm down. She asked him not to worry, but he wasn't really worried about her. He knew she wouldn't lose, of course. He's worried about their house. They'll blow it up. He shouted at the swordsman, asking if he had come here to fight. They lived quietly. There was nothing to disturb them. If he wants to kill, let him go to war. The guy in front of them replied that he wanted to eat. They looked at him questioningly, surprised. The swordsman apologized and asked if they had any food. After a while, he was already sitting down and eating with an appetite. Cleo asked if it was delicious, and he replied that it was. He hadn't eaten anything for several days. Cleo was surprised that he was polite. Only the swordsman didn't like vegetables and asked if there was any more meat. Cleo said there was something given and left. He asked Kohaku if he was the only thunder swordsman, and the girl was sure of it. But that's not how the hero imagined him. Cleo apologized for feeding him without asking. They will suddenly have enough food and will be rowdy. She told him not to worry, because if anything calms him down, she's still stronger than him. Koharu wants to thank and praise Cleo for stopping them, otherwise she would have fought him. He didn't understand why he did it so that they wouldn't tear down their house. It was dangerous to interfere at all, and he regrets it. But thanks to this, they only lost a little food. Even if it was an accident, she said it worked well. But Sophia was a complete failure yesterday. She wants to say that it is possible to win without a battle, and this may be the best choice and bring results. Now he understood. Once he read a strategist, and there was something like that. In battle, he is a hindrance, but he can turn on his head. The swordsman continued to eat and asked if it was possible to add soup. Cleo asked me to wait and told me to eat with vegetables. Kohaku said that the swordsman is strong and getting even stronger. The guy agrees with her, he scares him, the girl offered to make friends with him. The guy was against it. He killed a lot of people in the middle of the city, and he's being hunted by a creepy guild. The girl agrees that if he is what they say about him, then it's not worth it, but she thinks that he can become a good ally. Cleo understood that. He thought that he really couldn't put all the responsibility on Kohaku. He went to the guy saying that he would go talk to him and he would go alone. Cleo is used to finding an approach to bullies. Turning around, he saw that the guy was already gone. He heard a sound and turned around asking what it was. The swordsman was sitting by the river. He was looking ahead, saying that, after all, no, Cleo was asking from above what he was doing. The guy said that he wanted to catch a fish. He went with the flow and searched but found none. Cleo explained that it was because she had appeared recently. The hero asked not to do this anymore, because terrible things could happen in the river. The guy apologized, and the hero thought he was obedient. He asked him to wait. He brought him homemade soap and told him to wash up. The guy didn't want to bother because he would get dirty soon anyway. Cleo insisted anyway, saying to do it while there was an opportunity. The swordsman did not remember the last time he washed. The hero was shocked to see his body. Cleo noticed that the guy was not a man. He wondered if he had been tortured and how he had managed to survive with such wounds. The swordsman apologized and said that he had accidentally stumbled upon a river in the desert. I decided to look for fish and eventually came to them. He wasn't going to bother them. He asked if it was possible to wash clothes, and the hero replied that yes, no one uses this river except them. He decided to ask if he was the one who started the showdown in the kingdom of Gardo. The hero described to him what Sophia and the formidable swordsman had said. There are rumors about him. The swordsman was remembering that kingdom. The hero does not know what happened there, but he knows that it was worth thinking a little about the consequences. He said that it was probably hard to live with the killers who were being persecuted, and the swordsman agreed with him. Except it wasn't the kingdom that sent the assassins to him. The swordsman said that he had not killed anyone in that kingdom. He thought reinforcements had arrived, but they started killing each other. The hero was surprised and asked why. The swordsman didn't know himself. He quickly escaped. Cleo recalled Sophia's words and realized that the stories didn't add up. Cleo asked who sent the assassins then. The swordsman was silent, and then the hero said that if he did not want to tell, then fine. The swordsman said that he was the owner of the servants' quarter. He ordered it for running away. As a child, he was caught by traitors. Since then, as a swordsman, he fought every day as a gladiator for the amusement of the aristocrats. Cleo said that these are the ones who fight to the death in terrible duels. He asked if he really fought there every day. Now he understood where the wounds came from. It's a miracle he's even alive. The swordsman replied that it was because he had a purpose, and even if his heart was pierced, he could not die. The hero asked what the purpose was. The swordsman, with the intimidating face, said, "Revenge." This scared the hero a lot. Cleo returned to the girl and sighed. She asked how it went. He said that he was not a maniac to begin with. But still, he said it was impossible. Even if they offer to make friends with him, he will refuse them. There's a big load on him. Cleo felt a terrible thirst for blood in him. She reminded him of how the bandit leader had glared at him back then. The swordsman, having bathed, was walking back, remembering that he was distracted from eating. He wonders if there's still soup left. The guy looked away and widened his eyes in shock. Kohaku asked Cleo that he hadn't offered him friendship after all, had he? The hero replied that it was unrealistic. You can't even move it with a lever. Kohaku insisted that he wouldn't understand until he offered. Cleo admitted that she was right. You can't give up without trying. But he knows that the answer will be no. The girl told him to convince him, and the guy replied that he would try. Cleo said that if a nap and 3 meals a day didn't convince him, then he didn't know. He didn't know where he was again. He found it by the barrels. He came up saying that he had a conversation with him. The swordsman tensely asked where they got it from. Cleo did not immediately understand, and then replied that Kohaku had found him quite a long time ago. The hero asked if he knew what it was. The guy replied that he had only seen it in the picture, so I'm not sure, but judging by the shape of the tsuba, it is one of the 4 swords of the demon lord, Flame. Kohaku asked him again, and the guy added that these were blades passed down from generation to generation in his village. He had heard that he had passed on to the wandering swordsman who had saved the village from disaster about 100 years ago. The guy asked if he could and took out his sword looking at him. He said it was a beautiful blade that brought trouble. Who would have thought that he would end up here? The hero said that he had had enough. You can't appropriate someone else's weapon, even though it's not his at all. The guy apologized. Kohaku shuddered and shouted at Cleo to move away. Everything around the swordsman was covered in fire. The hero looked shocked. The girl managed to protect them with magic. She stared ahead in silence. Covered in fire with a blade in his hands, a guy stood in the middle of the flames. He looked at him like a madman, saying he was amazing. Cleo was surprised that the sword didn't react to the guy. The young man replied that he was overwhelmed with power. Suddenly, the sword lights up. The sword begins to overflow with evil power. The young man does not understand what is happening because the fire does not obey him. He tries to calm him down and stop him. Finally, the young man manages to stop the sword's fury. He smiles and eventually faints. Cleo is trying to bring the young man to his senses. Kohaku says he's fine. Cleo didn't understand why the unknown sword was out of control. Kohaku did not listen to the young man and suggested that he put out their inventory. After a while, Cleo cooks food over a campfire. He wonders how far it is to the kingdom of Gardo. At that moment, the swordsman woke up and approached Cleo. He decided to apologize to Cleo and Kohaku for the inconvenience. Cleo told him to calm down and join dinner. The swordsman suddenly asked Cleo to lend him a demonic blade. He says he will return it. Cleo refused to remove the sword. The swordsman said that he needed the power with which he could destroy countries. The young man said that another country had destroyed his homeland. Their target was the swords of the demon lord, which were kept in the swordsman's homeland. They were attacked by thousands of warriors, among whom were the owners of swords. There was no question of surrender, so the warriors slaughtered the swordsman's relatives. As a child, the swordsman was caught by merchants and he got into the ministry, but thanks to this, he gained strength and was able to escape. The swordsman asked to borrow the demonic blade again, but Cleo flatly refused because he thinks that the swordsman will not be able to take revenge, even with a demonic blade. The next day, the swordsman began to take care of the fields. He decided to help Cleo and Kohaku until they lent him a demonic blade. The swordsman said that his name was Suraku, and he would stay with the guys. A week later, the guys were working in the fields. Cleo talked to Kohaku about Shuraku and thought it was very good for them that Shuraku came to help with the household. Cleo was sorting out the drinks when Kohaku sensed someone. She said that someone would come to them soon. Cleo decided to be on his guard. Suddenly, they saw a strange man in a raincoat. Cleo thought it was some kind of bandit, but Kohaku saw that the stranger was walking alone. The stranger was surprised to meet people. He said they were the Mercus caravan. They travel around the country and sell different goods. After a while, Cleo looked at the many goods in the caravan and was very surprised by their number. Suddenly, Kohaku put a cloak on Cleo. Cleo was surprised that the raincoat was very warm. He liked him. Suddenly, the merchant asked about the money. Cleo gave the merchant some of the money. The merchant sold them a coat and a bag of salt. Cleo decided to bargain. Suddenly, the merchant approached Cleo and began to examine him and Kohaku. Eiichi was surprised that they lived here. Cleo said they opened a tavern here. The merchant began to list to his assistant the products and goods that they would give to Cleo and Kohaku. Cleo was surprised, but the merchant said it was an investment in the future. They have visited many countries and seen people, so they perfectly understand who is worth investing in. The merchant turned to Kohaku and said that she looked very interesting. He was very surprised that, at a young age, the girl had the eyes of a man who had lived for decades. He feels that the girl is very unusual. Cleo was surprised by the merchant's shrillness and thought that he must be a very famous merchant. The merchant turned to Cleo and said that there was absolutely nothing in him. However, he felt that Cleo had a strange attraction that others did not have. Then the merchant provided Cleo and Kohaku with a lot of goods and decided to invest them. Cleo was very surprised, but the merchant convinced him that he would support them out of his own convictions. Suddenly, the merchant takes off his mask and says that her name is Mikura and she is the captain of the Mercus caravan. She hopes that they will work together. Then the merchant told the guys not to approach the kingdom of Gard because a civil war broke out there the other day. If the guys don't want problems, they should stay away from the kingdom. The story begins from the moment when the girl introduces herself as Sophia, a knight of the kingdom of Gard. She says that this is not only an honorary title granted by the king, but also someone who protects the people and the country at the cost of his life. However, the girl then adds that she is now running away, leaving her debt. Sophia tries to hide from her pursuers when suddenly someone screams that she has been caught and decides that he will be given a bonus for her capture. But the girl rushes to the guard and strikes him with a sword. He starts screaming, and then the other guards shout that the girl needs to be captured. The girl understands that there is no way out and that she will have to fight. At the same moment, she tells that on the 10th day, as they went in search of the Thunder Swordsman in the kingdom of Gard, a civil war began. This happened when warriors, like Sophia, were on the lookout or pacifying robbers. Due to the lack of strength, the royal army was caught off guard. When the girl returned back, she realized that it was impossible to influence the situation. King Gard barely managed to escape from the castle and run to the south of the kingdom. But he lost most of his troops as the rebel army prepared a group of mercenaries to pursue him. Then the girl tells that the leader of this rebel army was Aratus Dikakora. He was the very first warrior with an unknown sword in the kingdom of Gard. Artus is an invincible commander who turned the kingdom from a small country on the outskirts into a great power in just over 10 years. After that, Sophia adds that he is her older brother. She remembers the moment when they met face to face. Artus asks Sophia to make a choice, after which he suggests that she join him or die on the spot. Then the story is transferred to real time. The man starts screaming and attacking the girl. In response, he begins to defend himself and back away, while the rest of the guards are watching this. The man notices that Sophia has good skills for the owner of an unknown sword and calls her stubborn. But then he kicks her in the face and adds that, according to combat experience, she is not even close to him. The girl jumps back and continues to defend herself from the blows. The man continues to say that she is not his rival, since he has defeated and killed unknown swordsmen many times since he became a mercenary. One of the guards asks the mercenary not to overdo it, as the girl may really die. His comrade agrees with him, adding that the mercenary himself said that Sophia would be given a great reward if she was delivered to the king of Gard. However, the man suddenly interrupts them, asking them to shut up and tells them not to spoil his fun. Then he glances at the beaten girl and adds that even if she dies, it won't be a pity. The mercenary remembers that the rebels are still hunting them, and since Sophia is the sister of their leader, even her dead body will be paid for. However, then he thinks that the rebels will be even more pleased when they are alive, when suddenly he grabs her by the face and pulls her to him. The man notices that the girl's face is quite pretty, which is why she is shocked. Then the mercenary informs that the delivery to Gard can wait, and decides that Sophia should be saved for himself after all. Upon hearing this, the girl screams for her hands to be urgently removed from her and makes a swing with her sword. However, the man easily evades this attack. After that, she uses magic and knocks one of the guards down. The man grins and notices that the girl still has so much strength left, but then the realization comes to him that she has already started running. Then the mercenary starts laughing and shouting to Sophia that there is a cliff further and that she has nowhere else to run. After a while, the girl runs up to this place and sees that there is no further road. However, she realizes this too late and does not have time to stop. The ground goes out from under Sophia's feet, and she falls into the water right in front of her pursuers. The guardian concludes that she will probably drown because of her equipment, but the mercenary begins to get angry, since in this case they will not receive a reward. Then they decide to run downstream. At this time, Sophia gets into the water and decides to use her magic, with which she rises up. Thus, she goes out on land, and there she already comes to her senses. After that, she goes somewhere as if nothing had happened to her. Sophia recalls a conversation with her brother about an ideal country. He tells her about a country where there are no wars and inequality, where everyone lives happily. Then he adds that he wants to make this country beautiful to everyone's envy, and the girl replies that he will definitely be able to embody it, after which she promises to help him with this. Now, walking over the stones, the girl wonders, was it really worth it to kill her compatriots? She then wonders if it was really worth it to kill her, and concludes that she means so little to her brother. At this time, the mercenaries return from searching for the girl, having not found her, when they suddenly notice Sophia going nowhere. She tries to find the strength to continue on her way, but strong winds and terrible weather make her fall off her feet. Lying on the ground, the girl realizes that she no longer has the strength and decides that it is useless to move on now. Then she wonders, is this the end? After that, her eyes involuntarily close, and she remains lying on the ground. After a while, the guys discover her. Cleo begins to panic, seeing Sophia's condition, and then Kohaku offers to take her to the tavern. They enter the building, and Shiraku immediately informs them that he has combed a lot of wool from Poppy. However, the guys decide to talk about it later and start saving Sophia. After a while, Sophia comes to her senses and wakes up in a dark room in bed. Noticing the unusual situation, she immediately gets up and begins to look around. The girl is trying to figure out where she is, assuming that she was caught after all. But then she leaves the room and realizes that the door is unlocked and that there are no guards. After that, she goes outside and notices some kind of lock. Suddenly, she is attracted by someone's voice. Someone finds a girl and asks her not to disappear so suddenly, after which Sophia recognizes this person as Cleo. He is heading towards her while she is about to ask about how she got here. The hero is surprised that she doesn't remember anything and tells her that Sophia collapsed right in front of their tavern. Then he notices that this is not surprising since she was injured and lost consciousness. Suddenly, the girl begins to remember something. Then Sophia thanks him for his help, but he advises to thank Kohaku, as if it were not for her, the girl would not have been noticed when she fell. Then he tells me that it was Kohaku who took care of her, and he only occasionally came to check on her condition. The hero asks Sophia to wait a bit, as the girl should wake up soon, when suddenly Kohaku herself looks out from around the corner. Suddenly, she is distracted by Shiraku, who, lazily stretching, wishes her a good morning. The girl shows him a sign to keep his voice down, thereby making the guy wonder what is going on. At this time, Sophia says that she knew that the guys had a house near the tavern, but did not think that they lived in the castle, and Cleo replies that Kohaku found it. But then he asks her not to talk about the fact that it is impossible to occupy castles without permission, after which she tells him that she is no longer a knight of the Kingdom of Gard, and therefore was not going to say it. Then the hero suddenly thinks about something, and assumes that a civil war has begun, as rumors have reached him. Then he begins to understand what Sophia had to go through, causing her an unusual reaction. Tears suddenly begin to flow from the girl's eyes, and Cleo immediately realizes what he has done. Sophia sits down on a rock and starts to whine. The hero tries to calm her down when he suddenly finds out that she has escaped. The girl says that she ran away and never fought the rebels, even though she is a knight. Cleo is a little surprised by this and decides that Sophia has chickened out. But she suddenly clarifies that her older brother is the leader of the rebels. Then she tells that her brother loved the Kingdom of Gard very much, dreamed of everyone living happily in their country, and fought for his dream, even when there was no living place left on it. However, victories in wars bring not only greatness to the kingdom, but also decay. Their kind ruler turned into a greedy and cruel king. Mediocre people who can only flatter began to strut around the country. At that time, people from the working class stopped working and spent their money on constant drinking. Instead, residents of conquered countries began to work, who were treated in a completely inappropriate way. The girl says that she understands that this is the right of the winning country and that it would be the same in any other country. However, according to her, her brother could not accept this, as he wanted to stop the rapid corruption of the kingdom of Gard. Sophia then says that she also couldn't bear to see how her comrades in arms had degraded and how the defeated countries were treated. However, even so, she understands that she would not be able to fight against her compatriots, since they have experienced so many sorrows and joys together. No matter how they changed, the girl couldn't kill them. Sophia then adds that this also applies to her brother, since he is her family and a dear person to her. However, now you can see the result of the girl's indecision. Now both sides have turned against her, and she has lost her place. The girl says that she could not fulfill her chivalrous duty and meet her brother's expectations. Instead, she just ran away, after which her hands suddenly cling to a soft plaid. She decides to ask the hero what she should have done to do the right thing in such a situation. After that, he thinks for a moment, while Kohaku watches the situation and Shiraku goes about his business. This causes tears to flow from Sophia's eyes again, and she apologizes for speaking out so suddenly, now thinking that she shouldn't have done it. Then the hero sighs heavily and informs her that she made a mistake with the choice of an advisor, asking him about it. Cleo asks the girl to turn to someone more suitable, citing Kohaku as an example. Then he adds that he is completely unsuitable for this, since he does not have the right comforting words and can only listen. Upon hearing this, Sophia cries out that she does not need any consolation. The hero advises her to stop crying and drink coffee. The girl begins to deny that she is crying, but Cleo replies that she is not. Suddenly, she picks up the mug and screams because it's very hot, but the hero decides to keep silent in response. Suddenly, he decides to call it right that she ran away. According to him, she chose the third option because she didn't like the other two. Then he adds that he would not be able to make a choice in such a situation, praising the girl for her action. Then the hero adds that Sophia may not know what was right now, but someday she will surely find the answer herself. Then he offers the girl to praise herself for being able to survive instead of reproaching. According to Cleo, thanks to the fact that she managed to survive, she can now enjoy such delicious coffee. Kohaku then notices that the oppressive atmosphere has begun to change, as he sees that Sophia was made to think by these words. She notices that the coffee is a little bitter, but Cleo says she doesn't understand anything, because that's the beauty of coffee. After a while, they go to the tavern. Sophia admires that the guys have completely restored everything. When she goes inside, she notices that the interior decoration is just like in a real tavern, but suddenly, something makes her remember the past. The girl starts to whine again, but Kohaku and Cleo start trying to calm her down. Then the main character notices that their tavern is open from today, and the girls congratulate him on this joyful event. However, then he realizes that there is definitely nothing to do here right now, so he decides that he needs to do other things before the visitors come. Sophia asks about these matters, and then the hero clarifies that it is necessary to bring water from the river here. They go outside and tell them that a pond should be made near the tavern so that people come here to rest the horses, and the guys themselves do not have to carry water here. Then he hands Sophia a shovel and asks her to help. Kohaku adds that a girl may not force herself if she is not feeling well, but Sophia suddenly screams that she will definitely help them. Then she throws Cleo and offers him to compete in who will dig the channel first, but he refuses, saying that one channel is enough for them. Then the girl offers him to compete in length, as she wants to show him what the former knight is capable of in digging channels. But he refuses again and replies that he does not understand what chivalry has to do with it at all. After a while, the guys start digging the canal. In the process, the girl wonders how much more time it will take, and the hero replies that it will take a lot of time since there are few people. Sophia agrees with him. Then she suggests digging even harder and gets back to business. Suddenly, the hero decides to ask her what she is going to do next. At first, the girl does not understand what he is talking about, but he is interested in whether she has somewhere to go. After that, Sophia realizes that she has nowhere else to go, and she falls silent. Then Cleo decides to ask her to stay here. She asks if it is possible to do this, and the hero replies that he does not mind, since they have plenty of rooms. The girl begins to doubt her decision. The hero, seeing this, assumes that she still has somewhere to go, but she replies that this is not the case. Suddenly, they are distracted by Kohaku's scream. She screams that she hears several horses and concludes that quite a lot of people are coming here. Then the hero tells her to call them, But these people turn out to be mercenaries. The hero notices that they look pretty creepy and suggests that they may be robbers. Suddenly, the man screams that Sophia should not hide and come out, as she was caught. At first, the hero does not understand who he is saying this to, but then he turns around and notices a girl glaring at them. The guards start laughing and saying that she won't run away from them anymore. But Cleo insults them and reminds them that this is a tavern, so he tells them to find another place if they want to wave their swords, but they tell him to shut up. Suddenly, they are all interrupted by the main mercenary. He apologizes to the hero and tells them that they are mercenaries, although they look like robbers, but he does not manage to immediately ingratiate himself with the hero. The man then explains that they are hunting Sophia, as she needs to be captured and taken to the kingdom of Gardo, and asks Cleo not to interfere with them, offering gratitude in return. The hero asks again about the kingdom of Gardo, and then the mercenary tells that she is one of the traders and offers to pay in return for her. After that, Cleo casts a suspicious glance at the girl. He understands what's going on and assumes that the sister of the rebel leader will probably be paid a lot. The man is surprised that he is aware of the situation and begins to get angry. Cleo then concludes that the girl won't just get off if they drag her to the kingdom. The mercenary agrees with him and adds that King Gardo is angry, as they had barely moved the capital when suddenly the country was captured. He says that the king is a well-known lover of torture and concludes that he eventually executes her after various tortures or uses her as a shield against the rebels. But the hero replies that it sounds disgusting, causing surprise. He then repeats that it sounds disgusting, making Sophia worry about him. Then the man advises the hero not to get involved with anyone from the kingdom of Gardo, no matter what kind of relationship he has with the girl. He says that over the years they have conquered many countries and made enemies in many places. According to the mercenary, there will be people who are ready to kill the girl only after hearing that they are the kingdom, and therefore calls it a great risk to cover for her. But the hero just grins at the fact that he worries about them and notices that he doesn't look like he's that kind. Cleo then replies that it's up to them to decide whether to take the risk or not. He says that he met Sophia not so long ago and has no debts or obligations to her. However, he notices that she is the first client at their unforgettable opening. Therefore, the hero says that he will not allow her to be taken away just because the man knows about this disgusting situation, when suddenly the girl interrupts him herself. Cleo turns around and is a little surprised, after which she steps forward. Sophia says the man told the truth. She has a lot of enemies, and she can get the guys into a lot of trouble if she stays here. Then she tells me that she accidentally wandered in here, running away in unconsciousness, and planned to leave immediately. But the hero replies that this is still not a reason to let the mercenaries take her away. Sophia assumes that if they don't catch her, others will one day, and calls it all a price for her indecision. She says that this is her fate, but Cleo notices that she decides everything too quickly, but gets silence in response. The girl decides to thank the guys for everything and admits that she was glad to hear the offer to join, after which she says goodbye to everyone. Then she turns around and heads towards the mercenaries. Seeing this, the men smiled contentedly, while Kohaku approached the hero and asked if he was sure that he would not stop her, but then noticed the expression on his face. Cleo looked very angry and unhappy. He decides to call out to Sophia and, informing her that he will not stop her, ask if she has forgotten anything. Hearing this, the girl turns around in surprise. Then the hero clarifies what he says about the payment for food and for treatment. He says he didn't get anything this time, so he asks her to pay for it. The girl apologizes, saying that she did not take anything with her when she ran away. She looks around and assumes that her sword may be suitable as payment, when suddenly the mercenary reports that he has taken a fancy to this sword. However, then he realizes that it is also not good to eat for free and asks the hero how much he wants, offering him at the same time to include payment for the trouble. The hero is displeased that the mercenaries rescued the girl and announces the prices. Breakfast cost 100 G, rare coffee 300 G, and treatment costs 500 G. Men are shocked by this, noticing that it is very expensive. But suddenly, the main character announces the last amounts, compensation for the destruction of their tavern last time, 10.00 ZG. It shocks everyone else. Kohaku and Sophia are very surprised, the men almost scream, and the mercenary decides to ask the hero again. The man recalls that from the very beginning he told the hero not to get in the way, but he answers the mercenary so that he does not get in the way himself, and promises to make the girl earn all 10 million in full. Then, with a malicious smile on her face, Cleo offers him to take Sophia when she has worked out all this amount, immediately saying that she does not know how many decades it will take. Upon hearing such a large sum, the men became enraged and started shouting, but the man stopped them and threw Sophia aside. He notices that the hero is full of determination and promises not to spare anyone who gets in his way. Then Cleo pulls out a sword and shouts at the man to come over, but then takes a look at his sword and decides to put it away. They notice this and start calling the hero a coward since he put away his weapon. Cleo replies that he has his own circumstances and apologizes to Kohaku, saying that he overreacted with his actions. She calls him hopeless, although it was expected, and the hero apologizes to her. However, then she notices that the fact that he got involved in a duel is already progress. He agrees with her. Then, to begin with, she asks him to step aside so that she can figure it out for herself. Suddenly, Suraku bursts into the battlefield. The hero is very surprised by this, and the man begins to wonder. He says that he saw a crowd of people, and therefore decided to intervene. Then the guys ask him to just drive away the mercenaries and not kill anyone. At this time, one of the men recognizes the guy as a swordsman with lightning bolts and warns that he is very strong when suddenly Shuraku attacks them. This enrages the mercenaries, and the battle begins. Then the hero grabs Sophia by the hand and quickly pulls her to him. The girl turns to the hero and assumes that it was Soraka they saw this morning, after which she remembers how she met him. Then Cleo tells that this is the Thunder Swordsman, who was chased by people from the kingdom and that he did not kill that 100 people in the kingdom of Gard, although he would have had enough strength to do that. At this time, Shuraku fights with the mercenaries and easily defeats them. They are scared because he did it with his bare hands and scream when the guy glances in their direction. The hero concludes that he is still strong, and Kohaku notices that he is giving his best and is still strong. At this time, Sophia approaches Cleo and is about to say something. He immediately explains that he was joking about 10 million and says that he hates people like these mercenaries and those who just give up and condemn themselves to death, pointing to the girl herself. Then he asks her not to think about giving up her life so easily since she was saved. Cleo says that in this case, you need to accept that the girl managed to survive, and then she decides to apologize to him, but the hero decides to support her anyway and replies that it's too early to despair. He assumes that Shuraku will deal with the mercenaries, when suddenly Kohaku screams. At the same moment, the guy flies back, and Cleo is shocked. The guy falls to the ground and casts a glance at the man, after which he informs that he would not like to use his real strength, because then he will feel broken. However, then the mercenary decides to fight with all his might. He pulls out his weapon, and the hero realizes with horror that he also has an unknown sword. The girl also understands that he was still holding back in the battle with her, after which the man starts a fight. He stabs the guy, but does not notice how he moves behind his back. Then Shuraku strikes him with lightning, but then realizes that he did not cause any damage. The man turns and strikes back, knocking the guy away. Seeing this, the hero concludes that the mercenary is very strong, but Kohaku explains that it's all about the combination of elements. It's not on Shuraku's side. Cleo asks the girl again about the elements, and then she tells that the elementary power of a man is earth, and Shuraku is lightning. Lightning attacks are very bad on the ground. At this time, the mercenary happily notices that everything is easy for him today. The guy jumps back and suddenly notices a sword on the ground. Then he decides to grab him and attack the man with a weapon. The hero also begins to support him, telling him just not to use his power. However, at one point, Shuraku's sword splits, causing him and the hero to be shocked. Kohaku says that this is expected, since a simple sword is inferior to an unknown one in strength, and therefore decides to help the guy. But suddenly, Sophia stops her, offering her help. The hero notices that she has barely recovered, but she replies that it was she who brought trouble on them, and therefore decides to figure it out herself. The girl pulls out a sword, and an unprecedented force comes out of it, from which the guys are shocked. At this time, the mercenary begins to win, and the other men begin to fiercely support him. At one point, Shuraku thinks about the fact that he was told not to kill the mercenaries, and realizes that his patience is coming to an end. But suddenly, a strange fog envelops them both. At the same time, Sophia begins to notice that the power itself is coming out of the sword, and remembers what also happened in the battle with Cleo. But then she adds that this time, everything is a little different, since she cannot restrain this force. The magic released from the sword occupies a large area around it, but does not touch the guys. The mercenaries begin to scream and fall to the ground, and Shuraku tries to resist the force. The man immediately realizes that the sword is out of control. At the same time, the hero tries to calm the girl down as she can break the tavern. However, Sophia refuses, causing him to have a more violent reaction. Then she says that she wants to go through it herself, because she chose the third path, thinking that both the others are wrong. The girl says that she thought over the words of the hero, and now wants to survive and make sure which path was the right one. Sophia calls the mercenaries her first obstacle, and therefore decides that if she does not cope with it now, she will not cope with anything else. Then the girl tries to say something, but it takes all her strength to restrain the force. Then the hero decides to come forward. He informs Sophia that he will not stop her, causing her and Kohaku to be surprised. However, then the hero promises to punch her if the girl thinks about self-sacrifice again and begins to rejoice that she finally acts like a knight. He tells her not to bother with trifles and to keep her fortitude under any circumstances, as this is important. The hero says that the strength of the spirit lies in not giving up and desperately surviving, even if the body and soul are badly battered, even if the person is left alone, because, in his opinion, brave men always find a way out. Therefore, he convinces the girl that everything will be fine and she will definitely cope. In response, he tries to say something. Cleo asks her to relax her shoulders to have a good swing, while Shuraku and the mercenary try to figure out what's going on. Thanks to the hero, Sophia manages to take control of her power. Seeing such a picture in front of him, Kohaku begins to admire it. Then the hero tells the girl to go ahead now and show everyone her determination, her will to live. She decides to follow his words. Sophia grabs a weapon and rushes at the man. He begins to rejoice that the battle is becoming more interesting and also decides to show how different their strength is, after which he attacks the girl, but she skillfully deflects the attack, making the mercenary angry. When the clouds of dust disperse, he notices that Sophia has disappeared somewhere, when suddenly the others scream that he is being attacked from above. The man notices how the girl jumps, while the hero screams that she did not need to jump so high, as it will be more difficult for her to dodge. The mercenary decides to take advantage of the girl's position. Sophia falls under his attack, and the hero swears for her, but Kohaku tells him that the girl's sword has the power of the wind and is effective against the ground. At this time, Sophia successfully repels his attack and strikes back. However, the man manages to jump away, and the mercenaries begin to rejoice that he dodged. The man recalls that from the very beginning he said that she was no match for him in terms of combat experience, when suddenly he notices that he screwed up. The hero says with a grin that no one can take a blow of such force so easily and asks if he thought well when he dodged. After that, the girl uses a special technique of an unknown sword. She then applies a high-speed bunch of 4 punches, thereby dealing the man a big blow. The guys begin to rejoice at this, and the rest of the mercenaries scream in fright. The mercenary barely gets up from the ground, and then the girl remembers that people like him have a custom according to which the loser in a duel either dies or submits to the opponent. She then adds that she does not want to desecrate this tavern anymore and asks the man to leave and not approach her anymore. At first, he informs her that he is not going to obey her. However, then he thinks about something and decides to stop there. Upon hearing such words, the other mercenaries begin to cheer him up and insist on the opposite. But the mercenary calms them down, because he understands that this is not the end of it. Then he begins to get angry that no matter how many times he did not catch her, the girl still does not give up. However, in the end, he decides to leave her. After a while, evening comes, and the tired hero falls to the ground, after which he notices that Shuraku is somehow gloomy. He remembers the fight with the mercenary and concludes that he still has to grow and grow. The hero says that it's all about the combination of elements and asks him to cheer up, adding that today he will cook tomato soup. Suddenly, Sophia comes up to him, and he immediately warns her that there is no food yet and suggests that she go wash up for now, when suddenly he notices something shocking. The girl apologizes for so many problems and thanks Cleo again. She then adds that she can cause them a lot of trouble in the future, but the hero replies that she is not the only one who attracts trouble, pointing to Soraka. Cleo asks her to tell her better about what happened to her hair, which makes her look away and confused. Sophia replies that she did it as a sign of her determination, after which she informs that she is now ready to work out 10 million. The hero is surprised and reminds that he joked about it, and then the girl says that she must take responsibility for everything that she destroyed. Suddenly, Kohaku decides to notice that because of Cleo, she cut off her hair, but he immediately asks her to shut up. Sophia swears that she will earn 10 million, and the hero already decides not to convince her. Then Kohaku notices that there are more of them, and then Cleo suggests that we start having fun in honor of this. Then he turns to Suruk, and at this time Sophia thinks that, slowly, she will now follow a new path, although she does not know what awaits her. She takes a step forward and heads towards the guys, addressing her brother and telling him that she will live to the fullest. The guys sit down at the table and start eating. Shiraku informs Cleo that he will continue building the bathroom today, after which Sophia remembers this and decides to take up digging the canal. Since this is her first job since she settled with the guys, the girl promises to make every effort and asks the hero to entrust her with anything. But he gets a little tense and decides to ask them both to listen to him while they eat. After that, Cleo frighteningly informs them that he has the ability to extract power from unknown swords. The guy and the girl fall into a stupor when suddenly Shiraku realizes what happened yesterday. Then Kohaku notices that it wasn't just yesterday and tells him that it always was. When the unknown swords lost their temper, it was because of Cleo. The girl is amazed by his abilities, but he replies that he does not know how it works. Then Kohaku says that she was convinced of this yesterday and calls the hero stupid in matters concerning him. Sophia suddenly realizes that yesterday she was just in good shape and not finally learned how to control her sword. Then she calls Cleo cool because warriors with the ability to support are very appreciated. But suddenly, Kohaku notices that this skill extends not only to his own, but also to opponents, which the girl is surprised at. This makes the hero more upset, after which Shiraku remembers that the mercenary also said that it was easier for him to control the sword, and concludes that it became more difficult to cope with people from the Guild of Assassins precisely because of the hero. Sophia decides that this will not work, and thinks about why this is happening, but the hero replies that he has no idea, since he does it unconsciously. Kohaku then informs them that this is why he wants the guys to help. The girl explains that she is talking about special training that can help Cleo get used to his unusual ability. The guys decide to start from that day, and after a while go outside. The girl asks if the hero is ready and pulls out his sword, from which a lot of power is poured out again. Cleo asks her to calm down, but she says that he needs to calm down, since this is not happening because of her. Suddenly, Shiraku decides to ask about why some are getting out of control and some are just getting stronger, like the mercenary yesterday. Kohaku assumes that such people surpass their abilities, and the guy decides that it's a lack of experience. She agrees with him and adds that swords are different. Then she tells me that most likely each sword has its own amount of power inside. Therefore, even an experienced fighter's hidden power can get out of control. After that, the girl adds that in this case only a warrior will be able to take this power under control, and other unknown swordsmen cannot compare with him. Suddenly, she is interrupted by the hero's screams. He asks Sophia to throw the sword, but she replies that she cannot do it. The guys decide that this is not good, and Shiraku is going to help them. He uses lightning bolts to hit the girl and stop her, and the hero notices that it is useless, since the release of force cannot be stopped. For the next 3 days, the guys try to repeat the training, but in the end, it all ends with a lightning strike of Shiraku. The hero starts shouting that it's useless, because he can't do anything, but the girl once again reminds him that he is the reason. At this time, Sophia comes to her senses, and the guys approach her. Kohaku suggests that she finish for today, and Cleo apologizes to her. The girl replies that she is fine and decides to continue. The hero asks her not to force herself, but she replies that the sooner he learns to control his ability, the better, because if they are attacked, it will be hard. Cleo replies that she knows this, but notices that if a girl injures herself by working her ass off, it won't be good either. Suddenly, she thinks about something and decides to ask about the new forces that are appearing everywhere. The hero asks her again, and then she tells him that there were rumors about it in the area, even during their pursuit of Shiraku. According to her, 5 gangs formed the Great Falk Gang. Then there was the State of the Inhumans, Diasin, then the Free Union of Liberals, formed by the rebellious slaves, and the New Order of Mundim, created by the followers of the cult. Sophia says that there are many skilled warriors with unknown swords who continue to win in his world, and suggests that there may be more than 20 of them somewhere. Shiraku concludes that if all of them become stronger from the hero's skill, it will be dangerous. But the girl adds that they unite not only to survive in such a turbulent time. She says that it's all because they got great ambitions together with the unknown sword, and the hero asks about it. Then the girl explains that these people want to rule the continent. According to her, even yesterday's slave, having got his hands on an unknown sword, can become a king. In fact, in the same way, the kingdom of Gard turned into a strong power. Then the girl assumes that people leading armies will continue to appear. After that, she asks if the hero understands what will become the most necessary thing for them. He turns around and believes that this will be the base, while Kohaku notices that it has become comfortable to live there. Sophia confirms his guesses and explains that when they are attacked, it may be too late, and therefore asks herself not to feel sorry for herself while she is fine. Then the hero decides to continue, and she pulls out her sword. After a while, night falls, and the hero sits down to say how tired he is. However, he still didn't figure out his ability. Kohaku encourages him, telling him to just keep going. She says that there are many new powers and other wonders and promises to protect him in case of anything. Suddenly, the hero turns to her to ask if the reason for his rescue is related to his ability. However, Cleo realizes that even if she asks her, the girl simply won't tell the truth. It had recently occurred to him that she might have reasons for not telling him the truth. At this time, Kohaku asks about what happened. He decides to wave it off and says that he thought that there might be opponents more dangerous than that mercenary. The girl admits this possibility, and the hero admits that it scares him. However, since this scares him, he promises to try even harder tomorrow, and Kohaku wishes him to give his best. After that, the story is transferred to the northern part of the continent, to the kingdom of Dalkad. His territories are strewn with the dead bodies of warriors, while the remaining girl asks someone not to approach her. However, at the same moment she is killed, and the man who killed her screams that all the people here are too weak. The surviving warriors see that their allies, warriors with unknown swords, have been defeated and recognize the enemy as a deposed king from some country on the outskirts. Then the man introduces himself as Hanriad and tells everyone to bow to him, as he will soon become the ruler of this continent. People obey him, after which he starts laughing. One of the fighters notices the sword of darkness in Hanriad's hands and concludes that the rumors were true, since a warrior suitable for the sword of darkness really showed up. They decide that they are about to come to an end, since no one will be able to defeat him, but suddenly the fighters begin to hear someone's footsteps. A stranger appears in front of the man. The fighter wonders who this is, when suddenly the guard stops him and asks about it. The guy replies that he is a hunter of unknown swords, after which he turns to Hanriad and informs him that he has come for his sword. Then the man orders to kill him, and the guards furiously rush at him. However, the guy easily handles them with a few strokes. Suddenly, a fighter attacks him from behind. But when he stabs the guy, the sword goes through him, and after that a real guy appears, chopping off the guard's head. From this, the fighter is shocked, and the man becomes dissatisfied. The guy stands next to his unreal version, and then Hanriad realizes that he has an unknown sword that creates phantoms. He remembers that such a sword belonged to his subject, but the guy replies that he killed him and took the sword. Then the Hanriad notices such a coincidence that the sword reacted to him, but then calls this sword just a trinket. The man deals a magical blow to the guy and concludes that he never received his unknown sword, being such a skilled swordsman. However, suddenly, the guy turns behind him and replies that the power of the unknown sword depends on its compatibility with the owner. Hanriad is surprised and turns back. Several phantoms appear around him, and the guy adds that the more compatible a warrior and a sword are, the more hidden forces will manifest, and the more abilities can be used. Then he invites the man to look at the real power of the sword, which he did not take seriously, after which the phantoms disappear. Then Hanriad raises his head up and screams in horror. He's confronted by terrible monsters that are several times bigger than him. Suddenly, his body is pierced by a sharp sword blade that belongs to the guy. At the end, he tells me that he is suitable for any unknown sword of this world. After that, the man's body lights up and he starts screaming. From such a sight, the warriors open their mouths in horror, but at the same time, in surprise. Hanriad suddenly remembers what he heard about the guy, since he said that he fits any sword, and calls him Valindio. The story begins with the moment when the girl introduces herself as a nerd under the name of a couple. She is a scientist who researches plants, travels to different lands in search of plants to discover new species. The girl says that for the last few months she's been conducting research in one forest, but now a new Mundim order is located there, and it has become impossible for her to work. Then she decided to leave the forest, despite the fact that her research was in full swing. It seemed to her that it was dangerous there, and she couldn't do anything about it. However, the couple considered it a good opportunity to find the mysterious elixir flower, and went in search of it. Rumor has it that it was first discovered in the great forests of the central part of the continent. But I also heard that lately it has become restless in those places, as the battles there do not stop. There are several roads to the central part of the continent, but since the girl did not want to be involved in the battle, she decided to go through the wasteland, although it was difficult for her. The path across the wasteland was harder than she had thought. Walking under the scorching sun with his pony, the couple concludes that they should have taken more water with them, when suddenly they notice something. She stumbles upon a tavern and informs Pony about it, calling her Pana. The girl is pleasantly surprised that someone is doing business in such a remote place and decides to look there. The horse snorts in response, and then the couple promises to leave if they feel danger. Then he carefully opens the door and looks inside. At first, she is met at the counter by Shuraku, who gives her an evil look. This makes the girl freeze in fright. She decides to apologize and leave, but the guy stops her. He asks if she is a customer and asks her to wait here. Then he calls Sophia over, and she immediately begins to panic, since Cleo and Kohaku are not here yet. Shuraku informs her that she is about to leave and decides to serve her as soon as possible. Upon hearing this, the girl immediately runs out of the back room. She greets the couple and appears in front of her in a rather strange way. This makes the girl even more scared and decides to leave. Sophia doesn't understand anything and tries to stop her. Then she screams that she won't let the couple leave, which causes her to start screaming loudly. Suddenly, a hero comes into the tavern and asks what happened. Sophia rejoices at his return and tells him that the client is here, while the couple realizes that there are even more of them. She notices the look of the hero and the scar on his face, which makes her conclude that he is definitely dangerous. At this time, Cleo begins to rejoice at the long-awaited client. The girl thinks she's in trouble and that she should have been more careful. She assumes that the guys are robbers and decides to get an unknown sword. But suddenly, someone interrupts them all. This man says that you can't attack people like that and notices that the guys scared the guest. First, he tells Sophia to wipe off the blood so as not to stain anything. Then the person apologizes to the couple, saying that customers rarely come to them and explaining the general excitement. The girl turns around and sees a very cute Kohaku who greets her. Some time passes. The guys sort everything out and bring food to the couple at the expense of the establishment as an apology. Sophia adds that she is sorry for scaring the girl, because before that she was just butchering a deer in the back room. Then the couple decides to accept the apology with pleasure and taste the dish, after which they cry out that it is very tasty. The hero asks her not to be shy and tell him if she wants more, despite the fact that they have few ingredients. Then the girl decides to ask for water and food for her horse. Sophia decides to take it up, and Cleo agrees with her. The couple screams that she can do it herself, but the girl asks her to enjoy the meal, saying that she knows how to handle horses. After a while, the hero finds out that the couple is engaged in botany and asks if she can recognize poisonous mushrooms and plants. She replies that she can do this with accuracy in this area and offers to show her notes. She gets out a lot of books, and the guys start looking at them. The hero is surprised that the girl wrote all this about botany, and Sophia notes the beautiful pictures. Suddenly, he turns to Surak and tells him that there are deadly poisonous fruits in the records, which they then found in the forest, with which he agrees. Then Cleo shows that it says that a painful death occurs after 3 days from a small amount and notices that everything was fine with Kohaku. Sophia is shocked that the girl ate that fruit, and she confirms it. At this time, the couple remembers moments when she was mocked by her peers. They asked what it was for, and the girl replied that by watching the plants, you can learn a lot about the surrounding area and about the animals living there. However, the children called her occupation crap, called her names, and said that she stank of grass. At the same time, the hero says that this knowledge will be very useful to them and suggests distributing it among all of them and learning it, but they doubt their abilities. Then the couple concludes that it is impossible to judge people only by their appearance. At first, the guys seem scary to her, but now she realizes that they are very calm people. Suddenly, someone breaks down the door to the tavern, which makes the couple very scared. A lot of bandits are gathering near the building and are not serious about this institution because of its location. Then they introduce themselves as the Great Gang of Falca and order the guys to bring them drinks, adding that they, of course, will not pay. However, at the same moment after these words, they fly away from the tavern with loud screams from the blows of Sophia and Suraku. The men start shouting that they are the Great Falk Gang, but the guys call them simple scoundrels. Shiraku begins to swear at them for breaking down the door, and the hero begins to regret that he cannot join them. At this time, the girl watching all this with Cleo changes her mind and decides that the guys are pretty scary after all. The men set off and notice that the sandstorm is intensifying. They also recall the fight at the tavern with an unknown swordsman. The man notices that the second fighter did not have a sword and believes that it was a lightning warrior who was hurt. Another says that the main thing is that they stayed alive and suggests getting out of here as soon as possible, fearing the meeting with a real fake since, in this case, it will be difficult for them to survive. But when the bandit looks around the corner, he immediately freezes in horror. A battlefield strewn with corpses appears before them. A bandit is approached by his colleague and asks why he stood in place. He replies that there seems to have been a battle here. Examining the dead bodies, the bandits recognize them as people from the new order of the Mundim. They decide to leave here when suddenly someone comes up to them. The bandits start shouting and do not understand who it is, but then they realize that this is a real fake. After that, the story is transferred to the tavern. The couple and Kohaku look outside and notice that the sandstorm has become stronger. Then the girl decides to apologize for taking their sleeping place. But the hero asks her not to worry and expresses gratitude that she let them copy her works. Sophia notices his drawings and starts laughing. Cleo doesn't like it, but she's not going to stop, so they start fighting. After a while, the hero learns about the new order of the Mundim and assumes that Sophia told about it. She agrees, and the couple says that this order has started to appear everywhere. These are extremist groups that attack towns and villages under the pretext of spreading the faith. The hero assumes that these are ordinary robbers, but the girl replies that it is impossible to talk to them like with ordinary bandits. Those she saw had empty eyes, like corpses. The couple suggests that this may be the effect of banned substances. Sophia admits that she has never heard of such a thing, and she concludes that there is not much to investigate with them. Then the hero says that it is rather reckless to go on a journey alone and asks if the girl has colleagues, but she replies that she is alone. She remembers that her colleagues died 2 years ago in battle. According to the couple, they were stronger than her and saved a lot of people with their medicines. Cleo apologizes, but she replies that she has already stopped grieving, adding that she has more important things to do than despondency. The couple gets up and tells them that she must continue their research, since she inherited the aspirations of her colleagues. Therefore, she promises to continue her research, even if this world dies tomorrow. Then she falls awkwardly silent and immediately apologizes. The girl says she got overreacted and adds that she can run well. But the hero says that he likes her attitude, and Sophia agrees with him. Then Cleo offers to throw a party in honor of the couple's future successes, and the girls agree with him. They offer her alcohol and other drinks. Then one of the guys offers the hero to roast meat, and he immediately agrees. It's getting close to night, and a crowd of people with horses comes to the tavern. The man casts a malicious glance towards the building, after which 2 of his companions jump off their horses. They run up to the tavern, and after listening a little, one of them takes out 2 knives and, checking with an ally, breaks down the door. But there they are met by already prepared guys. The hero greets them with a grin and asks why they arrived so late. Men are immediately scared and realize that they have been noticed. But both of them do not have time to run out, and one of them is electrocuted by Shiraku. The rest of the bandits are scared of this, and in addition, the guy decides to give them an angry look. The hero realizes that these were not customers, and Kohaku replies that customers usually do not appear at such a time. Then he admits that the girl saved them with her hearing, after which Sophia notices that there are more than 10 enemies. At this time, the bandits realize that they did not suddenly attack and do not understand why. But then they decide that the rumors were true, and this is not an ordinary tavern. Suddenly, one of them remembers that there is an unknown swordsman with the power of wind and a warrior with the power of lightning, after which he asks everyone not to lose their vigilance. Then the bandits decide to go and defeat the guys. The hero begins to get angry and is about to go tell them everything when he suddenly notices something that immediately horrifies him. He says that this time bandits with unknown swords are coming here. Then Sophia and Suraku go into battle, while Kohaku asks the couple to hide and calm down. The guys rush into battle under the night sky. Sophia runs into another bandit girl, while Shiraku starts fighting two opponents. Kohaku watches this with the hero, and when he notices that the bandit has 3 unknown swordsmen about whom they know nothing, she replies that there are not 3 of them. She points to the leader of the bandits and says that there are 4 such swordsmen. Cleo is surprised by this and admits that she does not see him. Then he decides that he needs to be on his guard and pulls out his sword. But Kohaku asks him to tell him better how he feels. The hero understands what she is talking about and immediately remembers the moments associated with his ability. He replies that after a month of special training, it became easier, but so far he has learned not to show this ability when it is not necessary. Then he says that it feels like when you try not to drop kittens from your shoulders, and the girl notices that this is an unusual way of mastering. Then the hero replies that everything is fine since he can take control of the ability. Now he is more worried about whether his friends will cope on their own. At this time, the man pushes Shiraka away with his sword and strikes him with a second blow with the ability. But at the same moment, the guy appears behind him. Then the bandit erects an earthen shield to protect himself from the attack. At this time, his ally, another bandit, is standing nearby and just watching the battle. Shiraku glances at him and says that there is a lot of trouble with the elements of the earth. At this time, the girl is fighting with another opponent and trying to hit her. Sophia creates a wind vortex, but the bandit uses the power of fire to defend herself from this attack and kill her. The girl is very surprised and barely manages to defend herself from this attack. Then the fire dissipates and she is attacked by her opponent again, forcing Sophia to back away. The hero notices that the bandit has the elemental power of fire and realizes that the girl may not be able to cope with her, which even Kohaku agrees with. Then Cleo starts shouting at them to have Suraku and Sophia fight together against everyone, as in this case they will compensate for their weaknesses. The girl initially realized this, however, she cannot do this, as she is immediately pushed back as soon as she approaches an ally. She decides that it's not a combination of elements, but the experience of an unknown swordswoman. Hearing this, Shiraku decides to rush from Sophia, but his opponent notices this and stops him by erecting an earthen shield. Then the guy jumps back, and 2 bandits appear in front of him, saying that now he will not leave them anywhere. The hero begins to panic even more, thinking that even by sight it is clear that it will be difficult with another bandit. Kohaku agrees with him, but also notes that Cleo cannot fight. Then she asks what he thinks about the current situation, and suggests that the hero go out to help the guys. This causes Cleo to fall into a stupor and once again glances at the battlefield. But then the hero decides that there is no need for this and reports it. At this time, 2 opponents appear in front of Shiraku, and he realizes that he can use his chance, after which he breaks through the opponents. At the same moment, he flies up to the 2 girls and strikes the bandit with lightning, preventing her from reacting and dodging. The bandits are surprised at how he suddenly found himself in another place, and notice how fast he is. Then they rush at him, shouting that he ran into trouble. However, suddenly Sophia uses a special technique of an unknown sword, and the bandits stop first. She then applies a high-speed bunch of 4 punches. Seeing this, the hero begins to laugh quite a lot and rejoice that they have snatched it to the fullest. He screams at them not to contact Poffy's Tavern anymore, and Kohaku begins to support him. At this time, Sophia thanks Soraka for his help, and he replies that thanks to her, he saw the weak point of the enemies. The girl agrees with him, but then notices that the bandits have not been defeated yet. He asks his colleague if everything is fine, and he replies that he received only scratches, believing that this is not a problem. Sophia admits that she was thinking that she was about to be caught, when suddenly someone declares that there is a rather big problem. A bandit appears in front of the guys, who notices that her colleagues cannot cope even with an unarmed opponent. In response, one of them apologizes and the other tells her to shut up. The hero is shocked that Sophia's attacks did not cause any damage to the enemies. At this time, both bandits begin to argue with each other, when suddenly they are stopped by a third. He says that the main problem is that they underestimated the strength of the opponents, and then the girl bandit turns to him, calling him Schubert. He notices that their opponents are both strong and first pays attention to Sophia. But then he also adds that the lightning fighter is especially strong, as he did not lose sight of him, even fighting 2 opponents. Then Schubert remembers that Shuraku quickly moved a long distance and decides that he will not be inferior to him in speed. The others are surprised by this, but decide to agree. But suddenly, they notice the hero and realize that he can be even stronger. Kohaku also notices that they are being watched and informs them about it. Then the hero decides to turn to them and charge them for attacking them. Upon hearing this, Schubert says that they were given information that an agitator of the new Order of the Mundim is hiding in a tavern in these parts, and concludes that the guys are not followers of this order. The hero does not understand what is being said and replies that they do not have anything like that here. Then he says that they have nothing to do with it at all and reproaches the bandits for not being convinced to begin with. Then they decide that the guys do not look like Mundimovites, and remember that the information was given to them by robbers who called themselves Falca without asking. Schubert concludes that there really were outstanding people here. He apologizes, realizing that they were in a hurry, and tells them that in fact his gang is fighting with the Mundima, and that is why they were alarmed when they heard about the agitator. He then introduces himself as Schubert, the leader of Falk's new state. Then the hero is a little surprised, and Kohaku remembers that other bandits came in the afternoon, who talked about the great gang. Suddenly, Schubert asks who is in charge here, and Cleo first asks him again, and then decides to answer that he is definitely not in charge here. The guy is a little surprised and turns to the other guys. Those in turn point to the hero and call him the main one. He starts to get angry and calls Kohaku the main one, but she joins Sophia and Surreal. The hero begins to quarrel with them, while the bandits assume that they have just met. As a result, the hero decides to agree with them, and then Schubert decides to offer them something. He asks if the guys would like to become their allies. According to him, Falca needs new forces, because they strive for much more besides the war with the Mundima. Schubert promises to provide accommodation and food, as well as pay in return. He then calls it unwise to keep a tavern in such a place, forcing the guys to agree, but this immediately enrages Cleo. He replies that they are not interested in such an offer, since they live here quietly. Then Schubert turns to Sophia and Surreal and asks what they think about it, which makes the hero furious. But these two also decide to refuse. Shiraku says that he will not go anywhere until he gets the flame, and the girl explains that she has circumstances here. Then the hero smiles contentedly, and Schubert grins with displeasure. The warriors conclude that this was to be expected, since the guys will definitely not trust the one who attacked them. The bandits themselves admit that they would have behaved the same way at first. Cleo advises Schubert to look somewhere else and invites them to have a drink next time at the tavern. However, he informs them that he cannot leave them just like that, because such skilled people are too valuable to him and other forces can take them away. The hero begins not to understand what this is about, and the other warriors decide to move a little further away. Schubert says that he is not used to giving up. At the same moment, he pulls out his unknown sword, which causes all the guys to be shocked. A lot of power starts pouring out of the sword, which makes everyone very wary. Schubert decides to achieve by force what he failed to achieve through negotiations, since this is his principle. Cleo calls him an ordinary bandit, since it is impossible to negotiate with him. At this time, Sophia notices that Schubert is very strong, but Shiraku tells her not to retreat, as in this case they will immediately be hit. The hero asks Kohaku to cover them and begins to prepare himself for the worst. At this time, the fighters are surprised that the guys are going to fight, even seeing how strong the opponent is. Then Schubert decides that they are really strong and begins to rejoice at this. Therefore, he promises to definitely get them. However, he is suddenly interrupted by the sound of wheels and the sounds of an approaching carriage. The guys are alarmed, and the hero asks about what is happening. At this time, Schubert's face changes a lot, and he says it's a rocket. A wooden carriage pulls up to the tavern. When she stops, a man gets out, who notices that they barely made it. Then he turns to the guys and asks them to stop this senseless battle. After that, this person shows up in full and adds, informing that whoever of them died, he would suffer great losses. The couple cautiously looks out of the back room into the main room of the tavern. Friendly conversations and giggles can be heard from there. The girl turns to the lady and notices the strangeness, which consists in the fact that just recently, their tavern was attacked by bandits. However, now for some reason, these bandits have become customers and started having fun. At this time, the men dance and laugh and chat together over drinks. Sophia modestly goes out to them and asks who to pour more drinks for. One of the men screams that he wants more, after which the other visitors notice the Soraka. They call him very cool and offer to quit his job and go drinking with them. The couple calls it a rather mysterious place and asks an interesting question about whether this always happens here. But then she adds that she noticed an even more striking thing. Suddenly, Sophia comes into the back room. She finds the girl and apologizes for the sudden noise. The couple turns to her, but the girl interrupts her and asks if she needs to bring her another glass of juice. She replies that she does not need to, and admits that she did not expect that Cleo, as it turned out, was familiar with the Mercus caravan. Sophia says that she was surprised by this, and assumes that they met shortly before she settled here. The hero's acquaintance turned out to be Makira from the Mercus caravan, one of the richest merchants on the continent. They say she can compete with 7 great kingdoms with her fortune, but no one expected to meet her in such a place. Then the couple wonders who Cleo really is. Sophia says that he was a mercenary, although she wasn't particularly interested. At this time, the hero angrily asks if Schubert is going to drink, and tells him to drink more if he wants to apologize. However, the guy asks him to wait because he wants to enjoy. He says he hasn't had such an excellent drink in a long time, and Makira agrees with him. Schubert begins to rejoice that the girl is well acquainted with the hero, since thanks to her everything went without unnecessary battles. Then she tells me that she has been friends with the guy for 5 years. According to her, she was just passing by Falca and heard about today's case, and that's why she hurried to the tavern as quickly as possible. Schubert decides to apologize to her, saying that he could not even think that this was a rundown tavern under her patronage, after which the hero asks him to watch his language. He says that they have only recently opened and promises that this place will soon become an excellent institution. Makira assumes that the guys will build a place to stay next, and he commits that she is absolutely right, believing that she is also in the subject. Suddenly, Schubert decides to ask about why Cleo keeps a tavern. He is a little surprised by this question, since he has already talked about it before. Then he replies that when the war started at the same place, they came running here, when suddenly he notices that the guy got drunk. However, he begins to deny it, and adds that this is not what he meant. Schubert asks if the hero has no ambitions, and he begins not to understand what the guy is talking about. Then he offers Cleo to become the ruler of the province, since there is turmoil now, and with such strong comrades it is quite possible. The guy says that people are looking for peace, and will reach out to where there are strong warriors, and that there are no kings to know. But a simple person can stand at the head, noticing that it sounds tempting. But the hero replies that he never thinks so. He says that he won't succeed, and that he has enough worries of his own. Cleo admits that she sees no reason to take on such responsibility, and comes to the conclusion that she does not want to die, but wants to survive. From these words, a kind smile appears on Kohaku's face. This is what the hero calls ambition. For him, it is a desire not to die in this turbulent time, neither in battle, nor from illness, nor from hunger, and to enjoy an easy life, having died in old age. Cleo says it's a very good life, working in the fields and constantly improving the tavern, but in the end decides that Schubert with his ambition will not understand this. The hero starts laughing, while the guy boils over. Suddenly, he cries out that he understands him very much, causing Cleo to be perplexed. He asks the guy not to lie, as he has just been talking about higher goals, but he begins to deny the existence of lies and assures the hero that he understands his dream. This makes Makira start laughing and confirms that Schubert is telling the truth. Then she tells me that when she first met the guy, he said the same thing as the hero. Schubert talked about a carefree life and death in old age. Suddenly, he adds that he said that happiness consists in working until noon, taking a nap after lunch, devoting the rest of the day to hobbies, and then falling asleep sweetly after a good drink. Schubert says that he dreamed of being a fisherman himself, and that he would have succeeded if such a difficult time had not come. Then the hero freezes in place and suddenly realizes that he is really in the subject. They start chatting actively together, and the girls notice it. Sophia concludes that Cleo has become good friends with the leader of Falca, and the couple once again calls him an amazing person. The night passes, and the guys see off the guests who came to them yesterday. Sophia notices that it was a noisy company and admits that she was very tired. Kohaku praises her and tells her to rest properly. Suddenly, Makira approaches the hero. She asks Cleo what she thinks of Falca's leader, and he tells her that for the first time he met a man with whom his values coincided. However, unlike the hero, Schubert harbors ambitions to dominate the continent. Although, according to the hero, this is not his own desire, it is imposed on the guy by society. Schubert told the guys that the weapon, called the Unknown Sword, is neither good nor bad in itself. However, the more selfish fools own it, the more people are doomed to suffer. The guy assumes that in the future, the war of unknown swords will only escalate, but already at such a time only the strongest will survive. According to him, high birth no longer plays a role, and only real warriors reach heights. However, if some impenetrable fool becomes the ruler of the continent, then he will foolishly condemn all mankind to perdition. That's why Schubert was chosen as Falke's leader. A little later, his allies said that the threat about finishing off by force was only half true. The girl said that his character is violent, but his mind is sharp. As an unknown swordsman, he has outstanding strength, but he will always lend a helping hand to those who are weaker than him. Therefore, the fighters really believe that it is Schubert who deserves to rule the continent. After all, not everyone can unite the entire rabble of 5 gangs, establish a gang, and create a decent state. Then the hero suddenly remembers the words of a drunkard from the time when he was still a mercenary. The man said that they do not become heroes of their own accord, but when they are needed, even if the person himself does not want it. Cleo finds out that the guy's name is actually Schubert Zweig, and concludes that he is not a bad person, judging by the people around him, although he does not know how to see through people and does not quite understand the whole essence of the situation yet. The hero then adds that Schubert has earned the recognition of a great merchant like her. He decides that the guy is definitely not stupid and admits that he wants his desire to rule the continent for the sake of world peace to come true. In response, Makira smiles and notices that there is also someone here who deserves her recognition. But the hero says that in his case she expressed herself as vaguely as possible. Then he asks why she stayed here, and then the girl tells him that they changed the order and after the fake they were going here anyway. Suddenly she remembers that she will be able to get everything she needs and decides to show what, in her opinion, she cannot do without in the tavern. The girl takes out a small dress. Makira admits that she could not even think that the guys live in an ancient castle. The hero asks her not to blab about it too much, because if bandits find this place, they will try to capture it and make it their base. The girl agrees. She then notices Sophia and assumes that she is from the kingdom of Gardo. Cleo says that she knows everything, but she explains that she is wearing the clothes of the kingdom's army. The girl remembers telling them not to contact them, but is not surprised that they did not listen to her. The hero says that it just happened and notices that she works and helps them well. Suddenly, the girls report that they are ready. Sophia comes out in a new dress and stands in a modest pose. Makira says she knew the size would fit, and the hero says that the girl looks great. Then Kohaku reminds her that she told Sophia that it suits her, and the couple calls her image very cute. But the girl replies that she is terribly shy because the clothes are too open. The hero is a little surprised by these words, since waitresses in taverns always wear this. Then he adds that the clothes of the aristocrats are even more revealing, recalling the deep neckline of the outfits. The girl says that everyone in the country dressed more modestly, and then she remembers that she mostly wore armor since she was a knight. But despite the fact that she hates this style of clothing, Sophia says she can tolerate it if she is told to wear it. The hero says that no one is going to force her, and decides that if a girl does not like to wear this, then this should not be done. At this time, Makira is giggling behind his back. Then she tells them that she still has things that she wanted to sell to Falk, and the guys say that this was to be expected from the great merchant. Makira offers Sophia several outfits. After seeing her in a kimono, the guys say that it looks great, but then they begin to doubt whether it is suitable for a tavern and notice that it is also inconvenient to fight in it. Then she puts on a strict outfit, and then the guys decide that this is too formal and call it too pretentious for a tavern. They ask Makira to pick up something less serious. After that, Sophia is dressed up in a Chinese-style image. The guys start saying that they like it, despite the fact that their opinions differ in terms of the similarity of the outfit and the atmosphere in the tavern. Suddenly, Makira approaches the girl and hands her the details of another image, saying that she collects goods from all over the continent. Taking this in hand, Sophia is very embarrassed. The hero screams that this outfit is even more open, and Kohaku recognizes this as a dancer's costume. At this time, the girl throws aside her clothes and starts running, shouting that she can no longer. Then Cleo approaches Makira and asks her to stop laughing at Sophia, in response to which she apologizes and explains that she could not resist seeing how innocent she is. After a while, the guys still manage to pick up an outfit that the girl will like. She says that these clothes look decent, inspecting her image. The hero agrees with her, saying that it is perfect for a tavern, and then Mikira decides to give them an apron as a gift. Suddenly, Kohaku enters the conversation, who assumes that now they will come to them just to look at Sophia. Cleo first asks her not to talk nonsense, but then she notices the berserker rabbit pajamas on the girl and is very surprised. In this case, he decides to buy something for himself. The hero allows the others to choose what they want too, since Folka paid them a lot of money yesterday. The guys begin to choose, and first their eyes fall on fruits and vegetables. Sophia is then attracted to the cutlery and begins to look at it, while the couple and Kohaku get carried away with choosing books. The hero does not stop chatting with Marika, choosing cans, but suddenly decides to turn around, hearing a noise behind him, and notices the department with weapons, which Shiraku is interested in. Cleo begins to watch intently as the guy chooses a weapon for himself and carefully examines it. But suddenly, he is distracted by Sophia's voice, who has found musical instruments. She picks up a guitar and, pulling the strings, notices that the instrument has a good sound. Suddenly, Kohaku comes up to her and asks if she knows how to play, but she replies that she does not know how at all. Then the hero comes up to them. He asks to take a look at the instrument, after which he sits down on a box and begins to play. The girls are very impressed by this, and they begin to admire his game. Sophia is surprised that the hero can even play the guitar, in response to which he says that since he is a child of war, he had to learn a lot. Suddenly, Kohaku remembers that he knows this song and then turns to her, offering her to sing together. The girl closes her eyes and starts singing, while the couple and Sophia admire her singing. Suddenly, Shiraku joins them, who informs them that he can play the flute. The hero is delighted with the sound and screams that the song sounds even better this way. By this time, the couple admits that they also studied the same instrument a long time ago. She goes to the counter to pick up the violin, and Mikira lets her do it. Sophia begins to admire how talented her friends are. She notices that they all know how to play at least something and thinks that it would be cool if she too had some kind of the same talent. Then, the hero asks what the girl thinks about dancing and invites her to dance anyway, just for company. Sophia tries to refuse, saying that she has not danced since childhood, when suddenly Kohaku comes up and grabs her hand. She begins to pull her along, and from this the girls start dancing to the music. Sophia stops being embarrassed and starts laughing happily, dancing in the company of friends. The next day comes, and it's time to say goodbye to the couple. The girl thanks the guys for spending 2 days with them and admits that she had a lot of fun. The hero, in turn, also expresses gratitude and notices that they have learned a lot about plants. Kohaku agrees with him and adds that she was also interested in talking to the couple, like the rest of the guys. She asks the girl to look in on them if she suddenly passes nearby, and the couple agrees with her. Then the hero decides to thank Mikira for the fact that she decided to accompany their new friend. In response, the girl says that this is not a problem, since they do not care one way and promises to come next month. Mikira asks the guys to try not to get into anything, and they wish her the same. After that, the cart sets off. The guys notice among themselves that it was a very busy 2 days, as they met so many people at the same time. Now some of them are even getting sad. Then Kohaku suggests that everyone not go to the tavern today and relax quietly, so that, for example, they can sort out the things they bought from Akira. The hero agrees with her, and Shiraku decides to continue building in the bathroom instead of taking time for himself. Suddenly, Sophia remembers that the guy bought a sword and asks if he really found something of good quality, but he replies that he bought an ordinary sword, which will break anyway against the unknown. However, this is better for him than being unarmed. Shiraku says that it is better to be with at least some kind of sword than without everything, and the girl agrees with him. She says that this time they were lucky to avoid conflict, but suggests that next time they may have to fight someone like Schubert. According to the girl, no matter what enemy comes, they need to prepare well to properly fight back. Shiraku replies that if he had a flame, he would have coped with this task without any problems. At this time, the hero silently follows them. Suddenly, he sighs heavily and announces that he has decided to borrow something after all, since there is nothing more he can do. Hearing this, Shiraku turns to Cleo to ask what he is talking about. However, after that, the guy notices the hero holding out a familiar sword to him. Cleo explains that he said that Shiraku could take the flame. A caravan of several mules is moving along the road. There's not a soul around, just boulders. Sitting inside the carriage, Mercus asks the couple if she studied at Valronius University. She also explained why she felt some kind of nobility in the latter, to which the couple replied that she was actually from an aristocratic family, but after the death of her father, a lot happened, and their family lost their position. But the professor turned out to be a very kind person, and thanks to his help, she managed to complete her studies. To which Mercus assumed that his name was Rockagil. The couple asked if they knew each other, to which she replied that they had been buying medicines from him for a long time. The caravan stopped. The animals eagerly began to eat. People went outside to take a little break from the road. Mercus and a couple are sitting on chairs. The first one said that if she was heading to the central part of the continent, she recommended that she find out about the city of Mintarlore, as scientists from different countries gathered there to form an expedition to the Great Forests. She also said that she would write a recommendation to a couple. She has several friends who will help with the research, although if she mentions her university, there will be no need for this, to which the couple thanked her and said that she was afraid to go alone. Mercus said that the Holy City is located in the central part of the continent, and there are no major conflicts there now, so it will be easy to focus on research. But she also explained that vigilance should not be lost, as strange rumors have been circulating lately, to which the couple clarified what kind of rumors are going around. Mercus said that a swordsman has appeared in the northern part of the continent who is able to use any unknown swords. His name is Valindio. The couple was a little surprised by these words, and Mercus continued and said that he stands out from the rest of the swordsmen, destroyed several countries alone, is now slowly moving south, and quite possibly will head to the central part. Anything can happen at times like this. You must always be ready to escape. The couple agreed with her and said the name of the swordsman Valindio again, thinking. Then she remembered that a man with the same name was in the Tales of the Kingdom of Finn, to which Mercus was surprised and asked if she was familiar with this essay. The couple replied that they had accidentally stumbled upon him in the university library. This is the legend of King Valindio, who struck down numerous forces of evil with a sacred sword. She had heard various theories about whether it was based on real events. Mercus clarified whether she was talking about the king, since she herself had read the version, which is slightly different. The couple was surprised and asked her again about what she had said. Then Mercus said that in her version of the tale, Valindio was not the king. He was a blacksmith, and the sword that was mentioned there was not sacred but unknown. The couple was very surprised that the stories were so different, and Valindio was also represented by the man who created the unknown swords that caused these troubled times. He looked like a man with a stern expression and long dark hair. The past tense. Ancient ruins, stone pillars, warriors deprived of their lives are lying on the ground. The girl with the glowing sword, looking at this picture, was surprised and said that there really were still direct descendants of Valindio in the world. Suddenly, she saw a man approaching her from the left side, holding glowing swords in his hands, and he had a very angry look in his eyes. Stone skulls began to appear around her. They surrounded her. The girl immediately exhaled nervously and closed her eyes. There was an explosion immediately. From this fire, she flew out in a round protective barrier into the sky. However, she did not expect Valindio to attack her from behind in the air. She turned around and immediately put her sword in front of her, deflecting his attack. They clashed with swords. There was a fierce battle between them, so that even parts of the ruins flew off in different directions when a sword hit them. During the next attack, the girl closed her eyes, put her hand in front of her and said that she would not give him this sword, even if she had to sacrifice her life. After which, she released her power towards Valindio. He shuddered. Chains came out of the ground and wrapped his arms, legs, and torso so that he could not move from his place. The girl stood in front of him at a distance, raising her sword arm to strike. After that, she told him to disappear and rushed straight at him. At that moment, Valindio freed himself from the chains, struck with a sword, and cut off her hand. She couldn't say a word out of surprise. The sword fell to the ground. After the shock passed, she screamed and rushed towards him. He also held out a sword in front of him, which pierced through her body. Blood poured from the wound and from the mouth. The girl could only cough, after which she fell to the ground. Valindio didn't even glance in her direction. Instead, he turned his gaze to the sword lying on the ground. The girl asked him if he knew what he was doing, to which he squinted at her and said that of course he understood. She called him a fool. Valindio picked up his sword from the ground. The blood continued to leave her body, forming a large puddle under it. The girl said that not everything would be as he wished. After that, her strength left her, she lost consciousness. He looked at her lifeless body once more, then abruptly turned around and walked away from the scene of the battle. present time. 4 masked men with 3 eyes stand next to each other, swords ready to strike. This is the three-eyed guild of assassins that hunted Shiraku and appeared from time to time. If there is an order, then whatever the resistance, they will come one after the other until the target is defeated. As far as the hero knows, this organization is a lot of trouble. And this time, they came for Soraka. They raised their swords to strike, and at the same time the 4 of them rushed towards him to destroy him. But he dealt with everyone with his sword and said that he would not take their lives, let them take their own and leave, and return as soon as they recover. He will accept the call at any time. Cleo, looking at the picture presented to him, concluded that they were now suitable for Surak only for training. Kohaku asked that as soon as Shiraku got the flame, he became even stronger, to which Cleo agreed and said that he even felt sorry for the guys from this guild. She continued to look in front of her and said that, to tell the truth, she was a little doubtful whether it was worth lending Surak the flame. But, as Cleo said, everything turned out well. The latter tilted his gaze towards Kohaku and looked at her questioningly. His thoughts were that he decided to lend him the flame when they were attacked by Falca. It didn't come to a battle, but the power of the unknown sword that Schubert showed was terrifying. If they had to fight, then Surak and Sophia might not survive. Cleo remembered telling him to his face that his sword was wasted anyway, so let him have the flame, to which Shiraku was surprised and asked if he was in his right mind. Cleo, looking him straight in the eye, said that he was still in his right mind. After that, he narrowed his eyes, which made his gaze become more serious, and, continuing to look at him, told him not to misunderstand him. He explained that he was giving it to him solely for the protection of the place and self-defense. He would not give it up for the sake of plans for revenge against Shirak, to which the latter asked if Cleo thought that he would take the flame and leave here. The main character closed his eyes and said that he would not leave, otherwise he would have done so long ago if he had been capable of such a thing, because there were plenty of chances. Sophia was closely following their dialogue at the time, and Cleo continued, saying that, as before, he was not going to keep him from revenge plans, but it seemed to him that so far Shirak was not strong enough to fight against an entire country. To begin with, he should now learn to handle the sword freely, become strong enough not to yield to anyone, and after that, he can already do as he wants. After his speech, Cleo asked if he would help them until then. After a short pause, Shiraku agreed and accepted the sword. The main character emerged from his memories and said that it would soon be 2 months since Shiraku came here. It seems to him that he has decided for himself what kind of person the latter is. He won't break his word, and he's just incredibly straightforward. To which Kohaku was surprised. Shiraku called out to them and told Cleo that he would go take a nap, and if something happened, they should wake him up. The latter agreed. He staggered towards the house. Cleo and Kohaku, looking after him, began to talk about how he had overdone it a little since he received the sword, and it seemed even difficult for him to use all the possibilities of an unknown sword. But they summed it up with the words that he will definitely cope, because he has an amazing sense of battle. After that, Cleo noticed an enraged Sophia approaching them. She clenched her hands into fists and began to talk very emotionally about the fact that it was training time and called Cleo to train. He looked at her and asked about what Sophia was suddenly doing, to which the latter replied that Shiraku was so strong, and now he has become even stronger. She cannot allow their difference in strength to increase even more. Sophia even started shouting that she didn't want to become a burden. These words pierced Cleo's chest. Kohaku stood to the side and looked at them with an uncomprehending look. The main character suddenly thought about her words, began to get nervous and said that she was right. He also did not want to give in to him. After that, Cleo, who was fired up with the idea, told Sophia that they needed to go train, to which the latter agreed. At this time, Kohaku turned around, exclaimed in surprise, and said that someone was coming. The others just asked again. The commander of the second raid squad of the new state, Falca Torab, came up to them with his guys and greeted them, to which Cleo asked if they had come again, and Sophia said that they were visiting them more often. Cleo thanked them for coming often and asked if they would have any problems, because this was the 3rd time this week, to which Torab smiled broadly. A blush appeared on his cheeks, and he said that everything was fine, they were just often nearby. The rest of the squad started saying that it wasn't really close at all. They had to drive their horses to get here. One of them came for Sophia's sake. The commander pulled them back and asked them to be silent. Sophia just looked at them questioningly. Torab repeated that everything was fine. They finished their work and came because they really liked their drinks, after which he giggled. Cleo, looking at them, asked if Sophia was really cool since she had such fans. I assumed that it was probably the merit of the clothes from Akira, to which Kohaku argued and said that the clothes here were just a bonus. She also said that Sophia doesn't understand it herself, but she has an attractive appearance, she is sociable and sincere, so it's completely natural. Cleo said that everything was clear to him. The main character turned to the squad and asked if they would eat anything, and also explained that there was no meat, but there were vegetables that they had picked in the morning, to which Torab said that he had that thing with olive oil and garlic. There are only plains around, there are no buildings near the house. The men said that it was still a quiet place and very calm, but there were so many wars everywhere in the world. Torab, looking at Sophia, said that it was just an oasis. After that, the squad began to discuss that the heroes were going to build a place to stay here, and decided that it would be a great idea to help them if there was time. The commander actively supported them and said that helping people is a good thing, and then he was interrupted by some incomprehensible sound from the side. Kohaku and Cleo immediately turned around at the sound, but saw nothing, only wondered what kind of sound it was. The sound continued to resound from the direction of the plain. Everyone immediately turned in that direction. The main character even put his hands to his forehead so that the sun would not interfere with looking into the distance. Cleo said it was coming from there. Kohaku said that it seemed to be quite far away. And then, abruptly, several men on horseback ran towards them at high speed. They had swords in their hands, and their faces were hidden. 68. The man in the center, who looked like their main one, told the others that they could take their lives if necessary. The main thing was not to miss. They agreed. Kohaku, looking at them, said that it seemed that unknown swordsmen were chasing someone. Cleo asked if they were rebels, and Torab was scared, asked if they were rebels and said that they should just try to attack the tavern. Swordsmen rush at high speed, carrying fire with them. Their cloaks are fluttering in all directions. It is not known exactly how many of them there are. Suddenly, one of them looks in front of him and sees something fiery flying right in front of him and crashing into the ground, thereby damaging it. The horse he was sitting on rears up sharply, trying to stop. There was an explosion right in front of Cleo, Torab, and Kohaku. The main character had to cover his face so that he wouldn't hurt himself. At that time, he was told to look up. When he raised his head, he saw that a man was flying towards him directly from the air. He cried out in surprise and asked if it was a man. Kohaku used magic at this time, and Cleo and Torab began to shout at each other, one about what to catch. The other said that he was catching. Continuing to shout at each other that one of them needed to step back, they still caught the girl who fell on them. Cleo immediately became very worried, tried to call out to her and asked if she was okay, but she could only mumble without opening her eyes. At some point, sensing that something was happening, the girl opened her eyes and stared sharply at Cleo. He continued to watch her. He said, without breaking eye contact, that it looked like she was alive. The main character, Taorob, and the girl continued to sit on the ground. She looked at Cleo and said that no, it couldn't be, to which he asked her what she was talking about. The girl covered her mouth with both hands. A blush appeared on her cheeks, and her eyes turned into small saucers. She told the hero that he was very handsome. Cleo and Sophia asked her what she was talking about, and Kohaku continued to look at her with a sweet expression on her face. The stranger put her hands on her cheeks, closed her eyes, and apologized to him for being so sudden, to which Cleo said that everything was fine and asked her to get off him. The girl thanked him for saving her and then admired him and said that he had amazing muscles. Cleo turned to her again and asked if she could hear him, and Taorob said that he actually caught her too. Sophia was very angry at this situation at that time and thought to herself about how this stranger had just met and already stuck. Cleo was also good. It was worth a pretty girl talking to him, and he melted all over. Then, paying attention to his face, she stopped in her thoughts and thought that she was wrong. He had such disgust on his face that she even liked this girl. Taorob thought that the stranger was strange. Cleo told her to stop and move away if she wasn't hurt, or he would use force on her. The girl continued to look at Cleo and said that even when he was angry, he was still a cutie. At this time, Kohaku asked Sophia if she knew that Cleo was very wary of people who behaved so friendly and at ease at the first meeting. Sophia, in response, whispered again about whether he had something similar in the past, to which Kohaku replied that she did not know the details, but he had been through a lot. At this time, the swordsman continued to stand at a distance from the heroes and looked at them. One of them turned to his people and said that there were people there. When the stranger saw the swordsman, she only exclaimed, "And were the rebels tesked?" He was surprised that she survived and said that she turned out to be strong. Each of the men had a sword with him. Taorob looked at them and shuddered slightly. The stranger immediately began hugging Cleo, and, smiling, said that she was scared they wanted to take her life. The hero began to get angry and only asked if she could hear him. Sophia was standing not far from them, overcome with jealousy. Kohaku turned her back on them. Tarub took his sword out of its scabbard and pointed it towards the swordsman, while addressing Cleo and the stranger, and said that now was not the time to flirt. The latter was indignant and asked who was jealous here. The commander realized that these people were from Mundim, which he informed everyone about. The main character was immediately surprised and asked what he was talking about. In turn, one of the swordsmen said that he knew Taurab. He was the commander of a detachment from the Falks. Another replied to him, which means this is their territory. The third one said that it was luck, and they could deal with everyone at once. At the same time, the men jumped to the ground. The commander immediately roared and shouted that these were his words. Sophia stood not far from him. Her whole appearance indicated that she was ready to fight. Torab immediately rushed towards the enemies. Suddenly, Suraku flew out from above, holding a flame in his hands. The commander was surprised by his appearance on the battlefield. Cleo was also surprised, opening his eyes wide, and exclaimed that he was going to bed. The swordsman did not understand who he was. Shiraku turned to his friends and said that he had woken up to the noise, and it looked like they had good training partners. After that, he returned his gaze to the swordsman and told his friends not to interfere. He would deal with them himself. Torub tried to argue with him and told him to wait because he wanted to show how cool he was. Shiraku did not listen to him but headed towards the enemies with great speed. The sword, like himself, just burned with flames. One of the swordsmen tried to use the power of lightning, and the other said that he was quite skilled and he should be careful. Shiraku clashed with swords with one of the enemies. The latter was surprised by his strength. Then the man turned to him, calling him a fool, and said that his sword had the power of the earth. Shiraku narrowed his eyes and said that his sword had the power of fire. The unknown swordsman was really scared. As a result, the fire flared up strongly, not allowing the swordsman to come closer. He only wounded them, from which they began to scream in pain. Tarob was surprised and asked if he had found a suitable sword, to which Cleo said that the sword had been there for a long time. At this time, the rebel, who has a sword with the power of the earth, got angry. He pointed his sword towards the fire and told it to receive. At that moment, Shiraku landed behind this man, called out to him, and asked if he had really decided to take the life of his colleague. The man immediately turned around at his voice, and Shiraku immediately used his power on him. The swordsman got hurt and started screaming. As a result, all the enemies were defeated and lay on the ground exhausted. Shiraku put the sword back into its scabbard and calmly looked at the picture presented to him. Tarob was only surprised by his strength and asked if it was fair to use two elements, to which Cleo replied that he no longer had any weaknesses. Sophia also said that she was jealous. The main character noticed that Shiraku was very tired. Therefore, he turned to him and told him to stop his tricks, since he still had not recovered from the previous battles, to which Shiraku agreed with him and replied that he would go and get some more sleep. The stranger snuggled up to Cleo again and said that his friend was so strong he had single-handedly defeated two unknown swordsmen. The same one started getting angry again and telling her to stop hanging on him. Sophia, looking at them, was seething with anger. At that moment, Kohaku noticed that fog was falling on the ground. Sophia only asked in surprise. Tarob agreed and said it was really fog. The stranger said that it was strange because another person was chasing her. Cleo glanced at her warily and asked her what she was talking about. But the girl relaxed, clung back to the main character, and said with a smile on her face that he had probably already given up. At this time, he felt the presence of someone behind them. Cleo turned around and saw a huge man standing behind them. He was very scared, screamed, and asked where it came from. Sophia, calling out his name, immediately rushed to their aid. Kohaku threw a magic stone towards the giant. The main character and the stranger jumped aside. While everyone was waiting for the stone to hit the man now, they saw that he was no longer in place. Kohaku looked surprised. Cleo asked if he had disappeared. She told everyone to be careful, as the giant has an unknown sword that creates illusions and hides his presence. Cleo exclaimed if this was really the case and said that it was impossible to relax for a second. The stranger folded her hands in front of her, made a sweet face, and addressed the main character with the words that he had shielded her. She was so touched. He, in turn, asked her to be silent already. The giant, standing at a decent distance from them, told himself that they had excellent reaction speed, which meant that not only the swordsman who defeated his subordinates was there, but the rest were worth something, and they need to be lured to themselves. Cleo swore and said that he couldn't see anything. The fog was thickening fast. They stood together with Sophia and Kohaku in a circle, protecting the stranger from the offenders. Kohaku turned to the guys and told them not to lose their vigilance. They agreed with her. Tarob said that things were bad because he was one of the commanders of the Mundim. Cleo asked him again. Tarob tensed up a little and said that there was a dangerous type among those commanders who possessed the magic of illusion. He uses dirty tricks, attacks the mind with illusions. Several unknown Tarob swordsmen were killed after falling under their influence. Even Schubert tries to stay away from him. He turned to Cleo and asked if he understood, and said that if he saw someone who couldn't be here so as not to be led and do stupid things, in the worst case, they can attack each other. Immediately, Tarob froze. A panicked expression froze on his face. He did not say anything. Sophia turned to him and shuddered. Someone from the company tried to call him by name. Cleo tried to approach him and asked if he was okay. The commander could only shout and swear. Sophia asked if a spell had been cast on him, and then she heard someone say traitor. She saw a crowd of soldiers in front of her, their faces covered in wounds, and blood was flowing down them. They continued to call her a traitor. Sophia stared at them in shock, thought that they were really soldiers, and then rejected this idea and said that it was not true. It was all an illusion of the enemy. She would not succumb to it. Then, behind her, she heard someone calling her a traitor and asking why she was still alive. She recognized the voice and turned around to make sure of it. She saw her brother right behind her. He looked at her with narrowed eyes and said that she had disappointed him very much. Sophia called her brother, and tears came to her eyes. Cleo heard a heart-rending scream next to him. He immediately turned around. Sophia stood next to him, wiping hot tears from her face, and did not stop apologizing. The hero immediately tried to calm her down and asked her to hold on. The main character called out to Kohaku and said that it was bad. This enemy was not at all like the previous ones. But instead of Kohaku, there was a void. He tried to call her and asked where she was. At that moment, his old friends started running next to him. They were wearing armor, running, and brandishing swords. They turned to him and asked why he was shirking, because they would be knighted if they distinguished themselves here, so they had to try like the last time. Cleo just stared at them with round eyes, saying nothing at the same time. A man with a beard called them jokingly and said that the main character was only interested in money. The latter did not cease to be surprised by the picture presented. His old friend said that they live a free life, and it hurts them to be knighted, to which Cleo turned to them, still looking at them in disbelief. The guys continued and said that they could not remain carefree forever. They had to take revenge, and they would pay for the death of their comrades. There was no forgiveness for them. At the same time, the situation around them had changed, and now they were in some kind of room. Cleo tried to stop them with words, shouting loudly, but they didn't seem to hear him. They walked away, one by one, out of the room. Immediately, the girl who was sitting next to him called out to him and asked if he was leaving now. His eyes widened too much when he realized who was in front of him, and the girl, holding a bunny toy in her hand, asked him to come back soon. At this time, the commander of the Mundima was moving through the fog and watching what was happening, while telling himself that every person has their own mental trauma. No matter how strong a person is, once under the influence of his magic, he will receive psychological damage, and as a result, he will not be able to recover. Then he praised himself and called himself the strongest. After that, all that remains is to melt their minds with drops of happiness, brainwash them, and the invincible novices will be ready. Then the Mundima order will become even stronger and even closer to dominating the continent. 140. Then he noticed Kohaku standing in front of him. He was surprised how she was able to cope because she also had to deal with her injuries. She, looking at him, said that indeed the magic of illusions was nothing but problems, but illusions of such power did not affect her at all. The giant got angry and said it was nonsense. How could his magic not work, after which he asked Kohaku about who she was. She replied that she was an employee of the Tavern. After that, a magic stone formed in one hand, and the other glowed with her power. She said that he interferes with their work and therefore will answer for it. She threw a stone in his direction. He did not expect this, but pulled himself together and began to beat him off. The giant spent a lot of effort on this and therefore even got tired. He chuckled. And then he laughed out loud and said that she had such strength, even without an unknown sword, that she was strong, and it was amazing. He said that their order needed such free people, and he would convert her at all costs. Kohaku just looked at him without saying anything. At this time, a hand reached out to the giant's face. Immediately, Cleo grabbed him by the collar and pulled him towards him. His face was very angry. The giant did not expect this, and neither did Kohaku. Both looked at the main character in shock. Cleo asked the giant if the illusions were his handiwork, after which he pushed him away from himself with all his strength, which almost caused him to fall to the ground. Clenching his left hand into a fist and holding it out in front of him, the main character said that the giant had shown him disgusting things, and therefore he should be beaten. The commander of the Mundim was surprised and asked if his magic had not worked on Cleo too, to which he again said that the giant had shown him disgusting things, which means magic works perfectly, after which he expressed himself unflatteringly to him. Kohaku turned to Cleo in shock and said that it was amazing, because once under the influence of magic, it was terribly difficult to free yourself, to which he asked if this was really the case. And then he explained that he just imagined kittens on his shoulders, as he did to prevent the explosion of the forces of an unknown sword. And after that, the illusion just disappeared. Kohaku was only surprised in response. At this time, a fire formed behind the giant. He turned around to see what was going on. From the fire came the words that the man had fought many times with those who used the magic of illusions. After that, Shiraku appeared out of the fire and continued that he still hates such people, he just hates it. Kohaku said that it looks like Tom also managed to free himself. Cleo only praised him. The giant roared and asked who they all were. Kohaku repeated that they were employees of the Tavern. Cleo told him to remove the spell from their guys faster because it causes psychological damage. At this time, the giant began to move away with words that they would not think that they had won, but he finally found new followers and would not allow them to leave just like that. But his whole speech was cut short by his cry. Cleo turned to see what was going on and saw the guys from Falk's squad. He asked them what they were doing, to which they were surprised in response and asked if they were all okay. The guys said that they have a special anti-magic drug, Falky. It protects against these illusions. They were expecting something like this, so they were ready. Each of their raid squads wears one. Cleo just admired that it was cool. The fog began to slowly disperse, and they saw Sophia sitting on the ground. She was unconscious, and there were tears in her eyes. Cleo ran up to her to catch her in his arms. The giant and his subordinates distanced themselves from the guys at a great distance, cursed and said that these were Falka's soldiers, so now they are at a disadvantage. At that time, Cleo tried to reach Sophia and asked if she was all right. Kohaku looked at her and said she was fine, just sleeping. The giant shouted to them that so be it. This time he would retreat, but he would not give up and would certainly make them novices of the Mundim order. The guys immediately said in disbelief that his voice could be heard from everywhere. Immediately, the giant laughed loudly. Cleo couldn't stand it, got angry and shouted back at him to shut up, because if he was running away, then let him do it in silence. Shiraku, without turning his head, asked if it was worth catching up, because it seemed that he was there, to which Cleo looked at him and asked what he had said. And then he thought about it and replied that it was not worth doing this, because he was falling off his feet. Besides, it could be a trap, so it's better to leave it. After that, he turned his gaze to Sophia and the stranger and said that they should first be taken to the tavern. And then he turned to the guys and said that he was leaving the Tarab on them. They agreed. Cleo and Shiraku carried the girls to the tavern and laid them on the beds. They lay motionless, fast asleep. The main character and Kohaku were looking at them. At this time, Tarab moaned that he was very ill. His appearance was really not very good. Cleo turned to him and said that it would be better for him to sleep, to which the commander told him to shut up, because he was fine. The guy from his squad said he just didn't want to seem like an even bigger loser. Tarab also asked him to be silent. The guys from Falk's squad started discussing the battle and said that the heroes were really cool. They fought with the commander of the Mundim without a single victim, and if they were alone, they would definitely have been killed. To which Cleo said that there were just a lot of extraordinary people among them. Everyone paid attention to the stranger and asked what she could have done that the commander chased her all the way to this place. Someone suggested that maybe they couldn't recruit her, so they decided to take her life. One of the guys suggested that maybe there wasn't a special reason for it, and he had heard how the Mundim order had become more radical lately. Another agreed with him and said that they often began to attack for no reason. Cleo said it might be a problem, because that commander said he would be back. Maybe the tavern wouldn't be able to work for a while. Tawarub closed his eyes, lowered his head, and told him not to worry, the Mundim order would soon be destroyed. Cleo asked if he was really going to be destroyed. One of the guys of the order called out to Torub, to which the latter told him not to worry, he was not going to tell anything important. And then he made a stern expression on his face, continued and said that in the near future he and Mundima would have a decisive fight. In shock, Cleo asked about the battle of Falca and Mundima, whether it would really take place. Kohaku asked if Falca had a lot of military forces, because there would be about 200,000 followers on the Mundima side. Torub said no, so they wouldn't go head-on at them, but he couldn't tell them more, and they had a plan. Cleo, after thinking about it, asked if they were going to secretly attack. Torub opened his mouth in amazement, and then, clutching his head, began to pretend and say that he suddenly felt unwell. Cleo called him a bad actor, and then said he guessed right. Then the guys from the squad started talking about what they would get from Schubert, and then asked not to say a word about it to anyone. To calm them down, the heroes said that Cleo just has a strong intuition, so he understood everything. The main character continued his thoughts and said that it would not be easy to take the life of their leader. Such large, serious organizations often have serious protection, and probably there are others in the order, like today's commander. Taurab confirmed this and said that there are 7 commanders in total. All of them are strong, unknown swordsmen, and each of them has several unknown swordsmen under his command. Cleo was surprised and asked if it was too much. The commander continued and said that there is also a leader, the abbot of the order, who has the ability to attract people. Magic or personal charm, they don't know that. Therefore, it is necessary to take his life right now, even if it would be very dangerous. Cleo agreed with him, saying that it could really turn into big problems if you leave everything, as it is. Taurab turned to them, saying that he would like to ask them if they might want to help them. Kohaku and Cleo just stared at them in shock. The commander said that even now they will not lose. He believes in Schubert's strength. He is really strong. But in war, you can't know anything for sure, and victory often depends on luck. If they join the order, they will become much more confident. Of course, all this is not free. He will arrange a fair reward for them. And then he asked what their opinion was. Cleo replied that even though the Mundim order was hunting for them now, he could not make this decision alone, because Sophia and the others would fight. Tarob shuddered and looked at Sophia, who still hadn't regained consciousness. Then he said that Cleo was right, and apologized for dumping everything so suddenly, just decided to share. The main character said that Tom has nothing to apologize for. This applies to them too. They will discuss it with Sophia and Shiraku when they wake up. Tarob said it wasn't worth it. In fact, they had made several alliances, so they were ready for anything. A member of his order told him to finish his speech. But the commander continued and told them to wait for good news from the squad. They will quickly deal with the abbot and put an end to the Mundim order. Then a voice was heard from the side, who said that he thought there was no point in this. Everyone turned around and saw that it was a stranger who said it. They asked if she was awake. Kohaku asked what exactly made no sense, to which the girl said that there was no point in what they were talking about, taking the life of the abbot of Mundima in order to defeat the order. Torab asked about why. She smiled, clapped her hands, and said that it was because she was the abbot. Everyone stared at her in shock and asked what she meant. A huge army is moving from the rocks towards the location of the heroes. Some of them are on horseback, some are walking on their own. The latter are wearing clothes that hide their faces completely. Everyone has a spear in their hands. The end of their crowd is not even visible. At the same time, someone in the castle exclaimed that 50,000 people were really moving, to which Tarob replied positively and said that they had at least 4 commanders and at least 20 unknown swordsmen with them. Cleo is very shocked. His eyes are wide open. He asked if they were really heading towards them and said that such an army would be enough to capture an entire country. Taurab said that according to their intelligence, they are moving towards them. There could be no mistake. The main character, never ceasing to wonder, cried out why this was happening. A voice from the side said that it was probably because of him. And the rescued girl came out to them, who apologized to them and said that she caused so many problems. To which Cleo called her by name and said that this was not happening because of her alone. The girl who suddenly fell on them a week ago is called Morkana. Then another man came up from behind Taurab and asked if it was her, to which the latter replied that she was. The hair of this unknown man is blonde, gathered at the back of his head. He's wearing a cape. Morkana smiled dazzlingly at Cleo's words. Her cheeks turned red, and her eyes turned into narrow slits. She told him that he was protecting her and thanked him. A week ago, after their encounter with the Mundim order, they got to know Morgana more closely. Cleo then, having found out who she was, asked about the ascension and clarified whether this was the reason they wanted to take her life, to which she replied that this was the reason. She said that if she, the abbot of the order, died, she would become omnipresent. The members of the order say that this will unite the faithful even more, and the order will become much stronger. Taurab then asked her if this meant that they were going to take her life for the good of the order, to which she replied that this was the order in their order, which was why she was running away so desperately, because she did not want to die. Cleo summed it up by saying that it was a nightmare. Morgana began to tell me that everything used to be different. The order was a place where people affected by the war could find a place for themselves. But everything changed when one of the believers received an unknown sword. Those who could not be persuaded with words, it became possible to force with a sword. You could not tolerate what you had to put up with before. There were more and more followers, and unknown swordsmen began to join them, and the order grew greatly. The order is now run by commanders. Helping people is a cover. In fact, they want power over the continent. Cleo immediately asked that if they relied so much on the power of swords, then what was the point of Morgana's ascension? To which she smiled and said that she always hides her face in front of the faithful, so they could just replace the abbot, but they persistently try to take her life. The main character said that this is a very strange persistence. Morgana smiled sadly and said that they had always been like this, and she was just trying to reach out to people who needed it. Emerging from his memories into reality, Cleo heard Taurab tell him that it was better for them to prepare for escape as soon as possible, because one of the goals of the order was to get heroes into the ranks of their novices. The main character immediately turned to Morgan and said that the enemies would come to them anyway, whether she was here or not, and asked her not to worry to no avail. Morgana was surprised at his words at first. Then her lips broke into a smile. She folded her hands on top of each other and, looking at Cleo with all her eyes, addressed him by name. She said that even though he talks rudely, he's still so beautiful. He immediately told her to stop sticking to him. At that time, the vice leader of the new state, Falconaria, approached them and informed them that the Mundim order had another goal. They need a castle of heroes. They are marching in such a huge army to provide the Order of Mundim with a second base. In the middle of the wilderness, where it is difficult for the army to reach, and even with such a water source, this is an excellent location. It is not only the Mundim who claim it. To which Cleo said that he knew that one day they would be attacked, but did not think that it would be a 50,000-strong army. Kohaku agreed with him and said that it was really unexpected. Taurab said that in any case, they need to hurry, because despite their numbers, they are moving quite fast and will probably be here in less than a day. Sophia was only surprised that it was so fast. Cleo looked down, became sad, and asked him if they should run. But at the same time, he was thinking about something. Taurab immediately realized that he was up to something and told them not to even think about opposing them. He agreed that the heroes are very strong, but the unknown swordsmen of the order are also very skilled, and there are several dozen of them. He added that, besides, 50,000 soldiers of the order are with them, and so that they do not think that they are just believers. Under the influence of various drugs or illusions, they rush forward without fear of death and cause a lot of problems. Perhaps the heroes will be able to defeat 500-600 people, but no more, since they simply do not have enough strength. Sophia, listening to his words, became nervous. Taurab told them not to worry, as they wouldn't have to run forever. Schubert is already leading troops to the main base of Mundima. Even if the plan to take the life of their leader was cancelled, they still had an agreement with their allies. While their army is very scattered, they are going to take the chance and go on the offensive, and then the order will definitely come to an end. Naria immediately joined the conversation and said that they had come here specifically to help them escape, on Schubert's orders, that they would be able to restore everything. The main thing was to stay alive, so it was better for them to run. Cleo looked at them and thought to himself that he understood that the situation was dangerous, but for some reason there was no sense of alarm, and it wasn't that he couldn't believe 50,000 warriors were attacking. The fact is that Kohaku behaved as usual, and if he started to worry, she would have told him as usual not to worry. No matter what happened, she would protect him. Taurab interrupted his thoughts, telling him to stop messing around because they had only one way out, to run. To which Cleo sighed and said that when they first found this castle, it was a complete ruin. Sophia was surprised that he started talking about it. The main character continued by saying that every day they restored it a little bit, and now the castle looks much better. They have worked tirelessly on dry, barren land, and now they are harvesting a diverse crop. They have a sauna and a bathhouse that Shiraku built, as well as a kitchen and dining room that they built together. To be honest, this is the first time in his life he lives in such a luxurious place. After all, he is a child of war. Cleo looked at Kohaku, and then turned to her and asked if she thought they could handle the enemies on their own. To which Taurab began to get noticeably nervous and angry. Shiraku even opened his eyes a little, and Sophia just called his name. But Cleo, not paying attention to anything, continued his conversation with Kohaku and said that this was their house, it would be a pity to lose it. She just stared back at him. After that, she said that there would be 10-20 people like that commander of the Mundima. They would most likely cope. If they fought together, they would win. However, to be honest, it will be somewhat difficult for them to defeat 50,000 warriors who are not afraid of death. It's like stopping a natural disaster. Landslide or flood on your own, Tarob is right. They don't have enough strength. Suraku became thoughtful and a little sad. Sophia looked at them with some bitterness in her eyes, and Cleo himself sighed and said that everything was clear to him. But Kohaku went on and said that it was all true if she stayed in her current form. Cleo immediately went into a state of shock, and then, falling to his knees, tried to ask her. To which Kohaku simply made a peace sign with the fingers of both hands and said that if she returned to her former form, they would cope without problems. Schubert said that there is an abandoned salt pit northeast of here, and if they have time, go there. After listening to him, Cleo, Kohaku, Surak, Sophia reached him, spending 5 hours on the road in one direction. The main character exclaimed joyfully that they had come. They entered the quarry. As we walked, we talked about buying a lot of pickles from Akira, but it would be safer to provide for ourselves. He won't necessarily come every month. Inside, they saw a rather deep cave. Cleo said that you need to be careful, because maybe there is someone here. Kohaku's eyes lit up with anticipation at these words. She crept up behind Cleo and shouted, thereby scaring him. He jumped on the spot and then turned to her and angrily asked what she was doing and if she thought it was normal, to which Kohaku apologized to him. Sophia laughed at him and said that he was still a coward, to which Cleo, continuing to be angry, said that anyone could be scared here. The main character froze in place. His eyes widened in shock. Sophia laughed and said that she would not be taken like that. She thought he was laughing at her. But Cleo said he wasn't joking, and there was a really huge spider behind her. She turned around when she saw him, and she screamed with all her might. Shiraku didn't even bat an eye. He said that these are salt spiders. They are not poisonous. You don't have to be afraid of them. They like salty things and strange bugs in general. Kohaku was inspired and said that it means the salt is already close. Cleo suspiciously said that he knew everything. The latter turned to Sophia and asked if she was okay, to which she replied that everything was fine, he just suddenly appeared near her face. At the same time, it was clear from her that she continued to shake with fear. Then she saw 2 more spiders in front of her, hanging upside down on the web. She shuddered and screamed in fear. Continuing to shake and cry, Sophia said that she had lied and could not stand these many-legged creatures. Cleo tried to calm her down and asked her not to cry. Sophia immediately began to argue with him, saying that she was not crying, but he said her nose was leaking. The others asked her if she was afraid of crabs and octopuses, to which she replied that no, they are delicious, she loves them. Shiraku interrupted her and told her to take a look. Looking ahead, they saw a salt mine and exclaimed that they had finally reached it. Kohaku ran her finger over the rocks, then licked it and said it was salty. Cleo touched it too and said it was a great rock salt. He said he wanted to eat something with this salt as soon as possible. Sophia sighed and said she should have brought something with her. And Shiraku said that he thought that this would be the case, so he took something with him. He took tomatoes out of his things and shared them with his friends. They immediately began to eat them with great appetite, saying that it was delicious and that their tomatoes were the best. Thanks, tomatoes. Kohaku made a peace sign with the fingers of both hands and said that if she returned to her former form, they would cope without problems. Cleo and Sophia were shocked by her words, but Shiraku listened to them with a bored look. Morgana was just smiling in the background. Tarob hit the table at her words and told them to stop, because there is an army of 50,000. Naria also said that she did not quite understand the phrase about returning to her previous form and asked if they would be able to repel the attack. Kohaku looked at her, folded her fingers in the peace sign again and said casually that it would be no problem. Tarob and Naria still looked at her in disbelief, only asking if she was serious. Cleo told her to wait and asked if she could return to her appearance already, to which she said she could. She also said that in fact, about a month after they came here, she had regained enough magical powers to return to her former form, but not yet completely, so she did not change it. She explained that in this form, magical powers are restored more effectively. Cleo, looking at her, said that he understood everything. Sophia said that she did not understand anything and asked to explain what they were talking about and what it meant to return to the previous form. Cleo turned to her and said that it was a very long story to tell, but in short, it meant that she would become an adult. Sophia said that it became even more incomprehensible. The main character said that, in other words, Kohaku would become super strong, and then they would not have to abandon the base and run away. Sophia did not respond to this. Kohaku said there was a problem. Cleo abruptly turned to her and, with a big question in his eyes, asked what the problem was. She replied that it would take time to transform. Then he asked how long it might take. Kohaku said that the more, the better, for at least one day. So if Mundima's army attacks at this time, then they will have to fight without her. Cleo approached Taorobe and asked if it was true that the enemies could come here in less than a day, to which he replied that it was most likely so. But Shiraku interrupted them and said that it was not a problem, asked them to leave it to him. He stood as if fired up with a new idea and said that an army of 50,000 people would be just right for training. Cleo just opened his mouth in surprise and said that Shiraku was even more excited than usual. Sophia said she was also fired up. She said they would fight together to protect this place. Morgana, smiling, said she would help them too. Cleo told them that it was wonderful, then go ahead. Sophia said that we need to start preparing for the defense as soon as possible. The main character asked Kohaku what she needed to return to her previous form, to which she said she needed to think about it. Taorobe and Naria, looking at them in shock, were surprised by their enthusiasm out loud. At the same time, an army of enemies is actively moving towards their castle. It's like there's no end to them. The commander told them to hurry up. Someone from the army asked the old man if he was sure that the abbess was there. To which the commander of the new order of Mundim Vipera said that it was dangerous to divide the troops so much when Falca was behaving so suspiciously, and if she was not there, he would not get away with it. Another Tarumba commander said he was more interested in the place that should become their second base. Is there really a spring with enough water in this desert? Commander Graydon told them not to worry. He had seen it all with his own eyes, although the abbess could have escaped. Commander Invia said that this should be fine too. As far as she could find out, she was still in this castle in the morning. Tarumba asked if she had used search magic, and then said that she was as good as ever. Vipera said that since she was there, then everything was fine. Graydon said it was amazing that Invia went to this desert, even though she usually doesn't leave the base. To which she replied that she was interested in something. Graydon immediately asked what exactly interested her. She said it was the source he was talking about. Invia said that he was from here and knew more about these lands than anyone else. She had been to this desert more than once, and she knew about the existence of the castle, but this is the first time she hears about the source. She wondered why he was opening now. She had an idea, but she didn't voice it. Vipera tried to find out what the reason was. Invia turned the conversation around and said that they needed to hurry anyway, as she was sure that this trip would help Mundima grow even more. At that time, Cleo, Sophia, Shiraku, and Kohaku were making preparations at the castle to prepare for the shape change of the ladder. They placed the stones on the floor. Cleo said they arranged everything as she said. She thanked him. The main character clarified whether this place is exactly suitable because it is dark here. Kohaku said that magic would have to fill the entire room, so the room should be as closed as possible. She added that it would soon be brighter here. At this time, a connection began to form between the placed stones. They all looked up and saw how the floor, walls, and ceiling began to be decorated with magical lines. Everyone admired the picture presented. Sophia said it was very beautiful. Morgana was also delighted and said how beautiful it all glows. Kohaku notified them that she was starting. Cleo said it was fine, and he prepared some food for her to eat if she got hungry, after which he wished her luck. He turned to leave, but Kohaku called out to him. She told him to stay here with her. He looked at her blankly. Kohaku asked if he remembered what she had told him in the beginning. She told him not to stray far from her, otherwise, if the need arose, she would not be able to protect him. Sophia and Shiraku watched them in silence. Cleo said it wouldn't work that way, because the guys would probably have to fight. Of course, he's not much use on the battlefield, but he can cook, for example. And anyway, when he was a mercenary, he constantly fought in the front ranks, so now he can't do that and stay here with her. Kohaku didn't say anything, so they looked at each other in silence. Cleo exhaled and said she was too worried. And if the same situation happens again in the future, then she cannot guarantee that she will always be there. Kohaku only lowered her eyes and said nothing. The main character said that he was not going to go far. He would get here in 30 seconds if he ran. He would not do anything stupid, asked not to worry, and said that he would not die for anything, smiling at the same time. Cleo abruptly jumped to his feet and told her that everything would be fine. Sophia said that she would protect him at all costs. Shiraku said that he was their leader and would not let them kill him. The hero asked if they didn't believe in him, but said he would count on them. Kohaku agreed with him and apologized, and then turned to the others and asked them to look after him and to be careful themselves. Everyone smiled at her and agreed. Morkana, looking at the pillow with a smile, asked Sophia if she had really made a pillow especially for her, and said that she was very glad, to which she said that she should not stick to her, and Shiraku made her. The abbot took the pillow in her arms and hugged it, pressing it to her cheek, while saying that it was so soft and you could fall asleep on it in an instant. Sophia agreed and said she was stuffed with fluffy poppy fur, which has a calming effect. The latter asked Marana if she could sleep alone now, to which the latter made a touching expression on her face and said that no, she would never be able to sleep alone because the room was too big and she would not be able to sleep. Then she asked if she could sleep with Sophia, to which the latter replied that she should not touch her stomach. She had already asked for it. Cleo said it was great that they had become friends, which Shiraku disagreed with. Kohaku said Sophia was just shy. Torob stands on top of a cliff and looks into the distance. On the horizon, he saw an army moving, after which he shouted at the top of his voice that the enemies were already here. He shouted again that Mundim was already here. Everyone immediately turned to where he was pointing. Cleo and Sophia opened their eyes wide, while Morkana stood there and continued to smile. They saw a huge army with warriors on horseback in front. Torob began to get indignant and say that it was a nightmare. It looked like there were more than 50,000 of them, to which Cleo was only surprised and asked if they were really all enemies. The commander turned to him and asked if he was too calm and if he understood how bad everything was, to which the main character said that he suddenly calmed down a little, looking at how he was going through. In general, he is afraid not only because the army is huge. Looking at the approaching enemies, he said that the first thing he was afraid of was that they had arrived earlier than they expected. Cleo, standing on a rock with part of Falk's squad, turned to Torob and asked if they were serious about staying because they still had time to escape. He got angry and said that they were staying. They had already said it several times. The members of Falk's squad supported him and said they would give their all. Narya immediately ran up to them and told Cleo not to worry. And she also said that, if anything, they would certainly leave them and run away. After all, they are Schubert's subordinates. To which he told her that everything was fine then. Narya went on to say that they had received orders from Schubert that they would not let Cleo die. The latter was very surprised by this order. She said that he had told her to help as much as possible if they still decided to defend the castle, so they would fight them as long as they had the strength left. Cleo thought about the information he had received, and then, looking at the members of the squad, Narya said that they had reasons to fight without orders. The men stood looking at Sophia and said that it was a great honor for them to fight with her. Cleo turned to Narya and asked why Schubert would help them, to which she replied that she probably wanted them to be in his debt, but she did not know the true reasons. One thing she could say for sure was that the leader liked them. He has always been a caring person, but this kind of participation is quite unusual for him. Cleo was surprised. The main character said that they have an unusual leader, and so do the men. Those downstairs stood and talked to Sophia about how she could rely on them, while she herself called on everyone to give their best. After a little thought, Cleo said that, in any case, their help was very useful now, and asked him to tell Schubert that when the battle was over, next time the drinks would be at the hero's expense. She agreed. The enemies, meanwhile, were also watching them from afar. Vipera asked Harumba if the heroes were really at the top of the mountain, and then said that it was higher than he thought, so attacking them would not be easy. Tarumba told him to take a closer look, and pointed out that it looked like they had blocked the passage with stones and earth. Not so long ago, this did not happen, apparently. They somehow found out that they were coming. The man said that since they have a connection with Falca, there is nothing surprising in this. Invia said that the defense occupied by the heroes indicates that they decided to stay and fight them to the last. Graydon said that, most likely, they are confident that they can defend the fortress, and in fact they are really strong, especially that swordsman with flames and lightning and the white-haired little non-human. In any case, it's worth setting up camp here. Their acolytes don't feel tired, but their muscles should be pretty exhausted after a forced march. An order was immediately given to distribute rations and drops of happiness, and then after an hour's rest break, they would go on the offensive. The crowd only boomed indistinctly in response. Then the whole crowd, staggering and pushing each other aside, abruptly rushed in the direction where the provisions were being given out, to which the man who gave her away swung his sword and told them to get it in order and not to climb out of line. Giving everyone a ration wrapped in rags, he said that as soon as they worked as they should, they would be able to get more. The crowd continued to shake, some rolled their eyes and drooled from their mouths, some just smiled crazily. Vipera, looking at this, said that it was disgusting, he would never want to become like them, no matter how low he fell. Graydon said that, on the other hand, they feel neither pain nor fear, and their bodies become stronger, although there are disadvantages too. Vipera responded by calling him the devil. Tarumba asked the giant if the attack plan remained unchanged, to which he replied that it was, they would destroy them slowly but surely. Vipera cut into their conversation and asked them to take the first step himself to make sure of their strength. He wants to take them by surprise and believes that this is the best tactic. At the same time, his whole appearance radiated self-confidence. He also said that if he was lucky, then that would be the end of it. Invia agreed with him, saying that she had nothing against a surprise attack. However, I asked him not to make mistakes so that he would be captured. Vipera got angry and asked her if she was really telling him that. At that moment, an explosion occurred in the crowd of the army. Several people flew into the air. He was very surprised by what was happening. The other commanders exchanged glances and also looked in a direction of what was happening in disbelief. Men from the crowd started shouting that the enemies had come. They were attacking them. Vipera asked what they were talking about. Then a part of the crowd fell to the ground unconscious, revealing Soraka in front of everyone. He was standing, lighting lightning in his hands, and a sword hung from his left side. Graydon looked at him and said that this was the swordsman with flames and lightning. Vipera only looked at the commander with displeasure. The swordsmen of the squad immediately ran towards Shiraku. Their swords were already working at full strength. They started shouting that there was only one enemy and they would stop him. When they reached Shiraku, he put his hand in front of one of the men at face level, and then, gathering all the power of the lightning force, sent it straight into the man's face. The swordsman only screamed in pain. The other men who were standing nearby realized that the enemy was very strong. They were scared. One of them, pointing his sword in his direction, attacked. However, Shiraku deftly dodged all attacks. Suddenly, one of them managed to get behind him and hit him with a sword. But the demon used the special thunderstorm demonic technique, red lightning, aiming it at all enemies nearby. The power of this spell reached even the commanders. The men who were attacked fell unconscious to the ground. Shiraku took one of the swords, examined it, and said that it was 3 to begin with. Cleo said that he had already refused several times. Sophia, looking at him and not understanding the situation, asked what was going on. He said that Morgana had pestered him with a request that she wanted to sleep together tonight, and he asked the latter not to stick to him. Sophia was outraged, said that it was really impossible to do this. The abbot of the order said that Sophia herself refused to sleep with her. She accepted that they refused her request and said she would go and ask Kohaku about it. Sophia said that it was even more impossible, and Cleo told her that she loved her too much. They had to spend the night together. Sophia asked her if she had asked Soraka about this, to which she replied that he would definitely refuse her, so she did not ask. Sophia said that Morgana is still considering her actions first. And the abbot also thought that asking Cleo would be quite enough to achieve a result. Sophia was outraged and asked her if that was really what she was counting on. But Morgana didn't say anything, just said goodnight. Vipera, looking at Soraka with excitement, asked if it was really red lightning and explained that he had never seen such a technique, to which Invia replied that, judging by the technique and appearance, he was probably from a demonic tribe. Vipera asked again about the demonic tribe, and she told him that to the northwest of here, deep in the mountains, there was a village where a people called themselves descendants of demons lived. At that time, the world had just learned about the existence of unknown swords. She had heard that they had been destroyed by the warriors of the Romaresca kingdom. Apparently, there are survivors. Invia warned the commander to be careful, as the descendants of demons have very sharp senses when it comes to combat. If he makes a mistake, the rest of the army may die. It was clear from the battle they were seeing now. Vipera got angry at her words and said that Shuraku was a worthy opponent. He would deal with him himself. At the same time, he looked very belligerent. He held a sword in front of him, showing his readiness for this fight. At that time, the army began to advance towards Shuraku. Several swordsmen stood in front of everyone and talked about him, that he was the swordsman with flames and lightning that they had heard about, and therefore everyone with the forces of water and wind should leave. Shuraku did not pay any attention to them. He held the swords of fallen warriors in his hands and talked about how he wanted to take them away, but it would be difficult to fight with so many swords, so he thought about leaving them here for now. The faces of these warriors froze. Suddenly, 2 army soldiers attacked him from behind, mumbling something indistinctly. They had axes in their hands, and one of them had a mask on his face that hid half of his face. Shuraku noticed them, turned around and used the force of lightning in their direction. It swallowed their bodies completely, and only their screams could be heard from there. Looking at them, he wondered if they could already move or not. At this time, he heard the sound of approaching footsteps and turned to see what was going on. Vipera flew up to him, immediately attacking him with a sword, but Shuraku immediately blocked his blow, holding his sword out in front of him. Shuraku used the force of lightning on him. Then the commander stopped it with his hand, after which they began to move in the air, periodically trying to strike each other. The demon's gaze was very angry. The soldiers of the army felt the full force of their battle. Moaning and moaning, they began to move towards them. Shuraku turned his gaze to them and wondered aloud that they could move, to which Vipera said that these novices could not be stopped by attacking half-heartedly. The drug made them insensitive to pain and fear. The demon looked him straight in the eyes. His gaze was full of determination. Vipera was even afraid of it, after which a fire formed next to him. Shuraku used a special technique of the unknown sword, nameless flame attack. The fire engulfed the enemy and all the nearby warriors. They fell dead to the ground. Shuraku looked back at them and said that this move was stronger than the previous one, so they would not be able to get up for a longer time, until he came up with a name for the reception. Then Vipera came out and said that he had managed to deal with them after all. But he added that his sword has the power of water, so his flame will not affect him. At the same time, he showed the demon his sword. Shuraku understood what he was talking about and added that he had heard that there was someone among them who controlled lightning and water, and asked what it meant that he controlled water. He summed up that it would not be so easy for the Viper to win. The latter only flinched at these words of his. Shuraku began to pick up the swords of the fallen warriors. The latter turned to the commander and said that he would return to the base once, since it would be difficult to fight with so many swords, and he would fight with him later. Shuraku said goodbye and began to move towards the castle. Vipera got really angry, asked if he really wanted to run away. Tarumba shouted to his comrade to stop and not chase him, but he did not listen and went after the demon. They began to climb up the cliff at high speed. Both of their bodies were overflowing with power. Vipera was trying to catch up with him. Shuraku landed on top of a cliff, followed by Vipera. Straightening up, he looked in front of him and was surprised. Narya and Taurab were standing in front of him, both of them on alert, and already had their swords out to fight him back. After that, an explosion occurred on the site. Tarumba and Graydon, who were standing below and watching what was happening, said that Vipera was not a particularly smart person because they were waiting for him there, but they think that Vipera will cope. Down flew the Viper and fragments of the rock on which the battle took place. Vipera swore. Cleo, Sophia, and Morkana gathered at the top, and were glad that everything had worked out. Narya said that Vipera dodged at the last moment. Taurub supported her and said that you can't just take him, he is the strongest swordsman of Mundima. Sophia told Cleo that his plan was excellent. The opponent did not expect this at all. He replied that it only worked because Shuraku lured him here. The latter said that he would like to do more damage to them, but they have too good a reaction. The main character told him that he had slain 3 unknown swordsmen, which is already great. Shuraku added that their acolytes were much more difficult to deal with than he had thought. Cleo was surprised by his words. The demon said that, of course, he tried to conserve his strength, but after his techniques they immediately rose. An ordinary opponent, even if he could move, would be afraid of the pain and retreat, but they didn't even have a hint. It seems that the medicine they are given is very strong. Narya said that initially they were already well-trained warriors or mercenaries. Now they have been strengthened with medicine. They will continue to fight even after losing an arm or two. Tarob supported her and said that they were really dangerous. Cleo thought about it. He said that he thought that, having an advantage in position, they could easily gain time if they tried, but apparently it would still be difficult. Graydon, seeing Vipera, greeted him and asked if everything was all right, to which he said that he was fine. Tarumba said that they wanted to take the heroes by surprise, but they were ahead of them. The giant agreed and said that they had taken 3 unknown swords from them. Vipera, all bruised from the fight, reported that Naria from Falca was up there, and also this one, Tal whatever his name. Tarumba was surprised and asked if Falca's vice leader was really there, and if this place was the second base of the detachment, to which Inbia said that it was not yet known, but it was obvious that Falca treasured this place. Graydon laughed and said that bringing the novices was the right decision after all, and then asked the others if they agreed with him. He said that it was necessary to form detachments of 100 people from the novice warriors and send them to attack in turn, while not giving the enemies a break. Looking into the distance, he said that no matter how strong unknown swordsmen gathered there, they would not be able to resist so many opponents. Everything will be resolved in 3 hours. Sophia, Taurab, Naria, and Suraku actively strike with their swords during fights with their enemies, with a concentrated look. There is fire all around and traces of the power used by the heroes. An army that tries to harm the heroes, but their power destroys everyone. Invia and Tarumba are watching the fighting on the sidelines. She turned to Graydon and said that it seemed that he had said that everything would be over in 3 hours, and asked if they had not expired yet. Then Graydon's laughter rang out. Vipera commented on the current situation and said that it was bad. It was really difficult to attack this place. There is only one way to climb up, and it is now littered with the bodies of defeated acolytes, and it is even more difficult to move forward. The enemy seems to have only 4 unknown swordsmen, but they are all quite experienced and fight together very harmoniously. The goal was to exhaust them with attacks without respite, but so far there is no hint of fatigue in them. He tried several times to send high-speed swordsmen to them, but each time they seemed to know when the attack would be and scattered everyone, attacking from ambush. Very difficult opponents. After hearing everything that Vipera said, Graydon thought about the words that the heroes knew when there would be an attack. He was trying to figure out how this was possible. Vipera looked at him carefully when Invia joined the conversation. She thinks it's the work of Lord Morcana. Then she turned to Graydon and asked if he had forgotten about it. Previously, when the Order did not have such power, they managed to resolve many conflicts thanks to her leadership. He said that, of course, he remembers everything. She was a brilliant leader. Vipera asked if this was before he joined the Order, and if Ms. Morcana was that amazing, to which Graydon said that awesome is not the right word. Her sharp mind, along with exceptional insight and intuition, allowed her to choose the best course of action based on tiny bits of information. This is her innate talent. They say that she is the granddaughter of the famous commander Hirus, a brilliant commander, one of the best on the continent. Invia interrupted them and said that heroes are difficult to defeat not only because of their location and strength. Her help also makes a big contribution. She also instructed them to be careful, while with the heroes of Mrs. Morkan, this battle will not end so easily. Graydon laughed in response. He said that he believed that there was no place for strategy in such defensive battles, but it seemed to depend on the commander. At the same time, Cleo screams at the top of her voice to her comrades that unknown swordsmen will arrive soon, so they should not lose their vigilance. Immediately, 2 swordsmen appeared on the horizon. The main character said that here they were. Torab was surprised that such a thing had happened. Morcana made a sweet face, folded her hands and admired Cleo's foresight, asked how he even knew about it. He replied to her that it was not for nothing that he was a former mercenary. The battle has its own special rhythm, for example. Now he called it pum-pum-pai-a, am. She told him it was lovely. Sophia came up to them and asked about the rhythm, told Cleo that it was cool, to which the latter laughed and said that in fact it was a merit of intuition. Naria's subordinates standing next to him said that even if it was intuition, it was just excellent. Naria, looking at him, confirmed their words and said that this was not all. His orders were also always unambiguous and easy to execute. In confirmation of her words, he began to give the order that it was too early to throw barrels at the enemies. They should be allowed even closer. And when the latter came to the right distance, Cleo told his comrades to throw right now. As it turned out, there was water in the barrels. The enemies began to ask each other if barrels of water had really been thrown at them. They were surprised at this and scared away. Then lightning flew at them. Suraku, standing at the top and looking at them, admired them and said that when they are wet, even a small blow is enough to put them down, to which Cleo said that they would flood the place harder and give them an electric hell. The comrades turned to Cleo with the question of what to do next, which he thought about. Naria was watching them closely from the side. And then she continued the story about the main character and said that that former mercenary, apparently, was accustomed to battles, which means he would make a good leader. Torub said that he was doing well because there were few people, but he was far from Schubert. Then Cleo called him by name and said that he wanted to let Soraka take a break and asked him to stand up for Sophia. Torub immediately agreed and told him to rely on them, and then he added that he would make an excellent leader, he guarantees. Clouds were floating across the sky. Part of the entire army was moving towards the castle. The men were talking among themselves about not lingering here, as a swordsman with lightning bolts might appear. Vipira stood at a distance from the entire army and watched as a large number of warriors moved towards the rock on which the heroes were located. He heard a small explosion, and someone screamed. He chuckled and told Graydon, who was sitting next to him and eating food, that they would have to intervene soon, otherwise they would not finish until morning. He told the Viper to wait. The probability is low, but if one of them dies, it will interfere with their further plans. They need to wrap up the heroes properly to finish them off, for sure. Vipira got angry and asked him if he understood the situation, and then said that right now the allied army led by Falca was moving towards the main base of Mundima. He said that the further they messed around, the worse the situation would get, to which Graydon replied that it was to deal with Falca that they needed to conserve their strength. The latter smiled and told the Viper to eat and calm down too, because if you hurry, you will make people laugh. Vipira looked around and realized that Invia was missing from among them. He asked where she had gone, to which Graydon only mumbled a question. At this time, the heroes rested a little while waiting for the enemies. Sophia drank the drink, saying that it was sweet and sour and so delicious. She even had a blush on her cheeks from pleasure. Morkana said it was a special drink. It had a lot of things mixed in it. I asked her to drink more, as it relieves fatigue well. Sophia immediately asked what exactly was mixed in there. Cleo told them that the Mundimans were still attacking even now, although he thought their attacks would weaken anyway. Morkana told him that they attack like that because there are so many of them. They must want to have no time to rest. The main character thought about it and said that before Kohaku regains his former appearance, there are still about 10 hours left. He asked Sophia if she still had the strength, because she had never had to fight for so long before, to which she replied that he was talking to a former knight. Fighting 1 to 2 days in a row without sleep was a common thing for her. She also said that, thanks to them all, she was able to rest enough, and therefore is still full of strength and energy. She said that if she were in his place, she would take care of Shiraku. He works there for 3 people. The main character said that he had recently visited him, and he said that he had about 70% of his reserve strength left. Sophia was surprised, and Cleo said it was good that he was on their side. She said that if there were 10 hours left, then everything was fine. It was easy to hold the defense in his territory, and you could rely on the guys from Falca, as well as on the orders of the main character. Sophia smiled resolutely, clenched her hand into a fist, and said that they would definitely cope and protect this place. Cleo agreed with her and said that it would be so. Perhaps the unknown swordsman would appear again soon, so she should not lose her vigilance. Sophia smiled and said she knew. Then her eyes widened in shock as she saw the enemy approach them from the side of her vision. She shouted to Morkana that there was someone in a robe behind her. The latter did not understand anything at that time, stood with a drink in her hands and only looked questioningly. The enemy swung his sword to strike Morkana. She turned around with horror in her eyes to see who it was and what was going on. At that moment, Cleo managed to run up to them to grab the abbot and protect her from the blow. They made it in time. The sword passed by them without hitting anyone. The main character, holding Morkana in his arms, flew away a decent distance. He only managed to shout about where it came from. Turning around, he saw that this black something was heading in their direction, and he yelled. Sophia, seeing the emerging picture, grabbed her sword and ran at the enemy to distract his attention to herself. They clashed with swords. Naria and Taurab kept an eye on the surroundings. She called out to the man and said that the enemy had broken through, to which he replied that this could not be. Sophia continued her fierce battle with the invisible enemy in the cape. They repeatedly struck at each other. At one point, she struck at the exact center of the enemy's torso, but he just disappeared into thin air. She didn't understand how this was possible. Invia materialized at her side, who said that Sophia had managed to defeat the warrior she had summoned. She asked what it meant. And at that moment, Invia struck and pierced Sophia through the abdomen with a sword. Blood immediately started gushing from the wound. Cleo's eyes widened in horror.